Our Adam Schefter reporting that the Cowboys are now listening to trade offers for Micah Parsons. What's your reaction to that?
Micah Parsons, hey, look, you can report all you want. There's no way they're allowing Micah Parsons to go anywhere. All of it, all of this is part of the negotiations. And as I talked to Jerry the other day on my podcast, and he was talking about it the other day when he tried to make that offer, he said somebody told him to shove it up his rear and all of that. I honestly, it blew my mind. It blew my mind that any kind of conversation like that would be going on in a situation like this. Micah Parsons, I want him to take control of this thing and say, I don't care about you two and whatever y'all got going. Get your butts in a room and get my money on that paper. That's what you need to be doing. So I'm hoping that's what gets done. But I guarantee Micah Parsons not going anywhere. Jerry's not that crazy. This is all what we call just negotiation stuff.
60 minutes later, Micah Parsons was no longer a member of the Dallas Cowboys.
I think you mean 60 seconds.
Today is a great day.
It's a fantastic day, Denton.
It's the first football Friday of the 2025 season, at least in college football.
Gave us our first winners yesterday. Thank you.
I handed out some money yesterday. I hope everyone was on USF. We won't talk about the other pick I gave out, but USF hit. And at like 4:30 p.m., 5 p.m.
I think it was 5 on the dot.
We get news from Adam Schefter. Micah Parsons gone in Dallas. Headed to the Green Bay Packers. Dallas gets Kenny Clark and 2 first-round picks in return. Today is a great day.
I'm so glad you're not laughing.
I'm laughing internally. The problem is my laugh on radio sounds a little too maniacal.
Well, this would be the time for it, my friend.
It would be the time, but I think I'm saving it for better days, Max. There won't be many better days than this, because who trades a 26-year-old superstar who is approaching the prime of his career? He's not even in the prime yet, which is crazy because he's had 12 sacks every year of his career. He's approaching the prime of his career, and you trade him for 2 first-round picks and an aging defensive tackle. And it's not even like the first-round picks are going to be great picks because you're trading him to a contender. This senile bastard in Jerry Jones. What a moron. I am so glad that after 30 years of being the laughingstock, the Hainsworth deal, the Archuleta deal, Carson Wentz, McNabb, the list goes on and on and on. And by the grace of God himself, it's not us anymore. We are no longer the laughingstock because an 82-year-old billionaire who is effectively senile is in charge of what is supposed to be, and what effectively still is, despite all of this, the most powerful franchise in American sports. It's being run by an idiot, and by an idiot that thinks he's a genius. There's only one thing worse than an idiot, Max, and it's an idiot that thinks he's intelligent, because you can't tell him nothing. And they took Micah Parsons and shipped him away. 3 weeks ago, I was on this show talking about the NFC East and talking about why the offensive line was such a priority for Washington, because you had to go up against the Giants, and that Giants defensive line come week 1 scares me a little bit. You got to go up against Philadelphia. Philadelphia won a Super Bowl, didn't blitz a single time in that game. And you had to go up against arguably the best defensive player in the game in Micah Parsons. And then Jerry traded him away because he tried to get him to sign a contract like he's giving away land in the 1800s when contracts weren't really a thing, because you had to get a literal feather and some ink to sign that thing, and it was so much easier to do it with a handshake. This guy is trapped 150 plus years ago trying to sign Micah Parsons to a deal. This absolute buffoon of a man leather skin and all, this idiot. I am so glad, Max. I live in a time where I can watch Jerry Jones literally implode the organization that I hate the most in the NFL and do it from the inside while trying to convince everybody that he is a genius and doing the right thing.
I think you're a genius, Jerry.
What an intelligent man. This dude paid Dak Prescott $60 million. 60 with a 6 and a 0. Dak is like a 12 to 15 quarterback in this league, especially when he paid him. There were some times where Dak was a top 10 quarterback. It is not when Jerry paid him. He's like a 12 to 15 quarterback in this league. He reset the market, which no one has topped since. A bunch of guys got paid this year. Nobody got $60 million. He paid Dak $60 million, but will not pay arguably the best player at the second most important position, $45 million. He instead lets Green Bay pay him $48 million, and he trades him away again for an aging defensive tackle and 2 first-round picks that likely are going to be late in the first round. You know who you're going to get that's better than Micah Parsons at pick number potentially 26, 27, 8, 9, 30, 31, 32? No one. No one. And then on top of that, Max, it just when I thought, I was like, it's not going to get better. It gets better because this leather-faced idiot got in front of a microphone and said, we might flip these 2 first-round picks for a good player now. Who is available?
I hear Michael Parsons is available.
You want to flip him for Trey Hendrickson now? Like, hey, Cincinnati, we'll give you 2 first. And then Jerry will get up at a press conference and be like, well, he had 17 and a half sacks 2 years in a row. He's clearly better than Micah Parsons. But yeah, who cares that he's 30 years old and Micah Parsons was 26? Who cares that the cap was moving up, so the $48 million contract in a year and a half wouldn't even be all that crazy? Just take that out of your mind. He didn't like my handshake deal in 2025. I couldn't believe that yesterday was real. I couldn't.
It's one of those days that you just kind of wake up and it doesn't fully hit you about how great the day is until your head hits the pillow. Like,
my head hit the pillow very late last night. It was actually early this morning. We'll get into that, though. College football was awesome last night.
Sick.
You texted me as I was on a run. The last time I got a big text when I was on a run, it was when Terry requested a trade.
Whew.
So you texted me. Let me pull up the text message.
I believe I said holy word you can't say. On the radio.
There has to be some family friendly edits to that. Yes, you just said holy and then a word that starts with the letter S. And there was a tweet. And when you run, or not when you run, but when you pick your phone up, when you have a lot of messages, it just goes that, but it's just a link to an Adam Schefter tweet, but I can't see the tweet.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I have a feeling, I think I know what this is, but I don't know how big of a holy S word this is actually going to be. My guess was this is something to do with Michael Parsons, because in fairness and in transparency, I had already written a segment about Michael Parsons that we were going to do to start the show, about how I think Adam Peters should sell everything other than Jaden and Terry to Dallas to get Michael Parsons. And I was going to have this crazy take. Phone lines were going to be out the wazoo. And I look at the tweet, and it says that Michael Parsons was dealt. And then this is not a shot at you, Max. I just had to do due diligence.
Understandable.
I just had to make sure that this was real.
I get it.
Because I've been fooled by the Adam Schefflers. I've been fooled by all these guys. Schefter, there's like a 7 in there somewhere. I just had to make sure that this was going to be accurate. And Elon's Twitter, you don't know who is real and who's not anymore.
And there's another part of this tweet that I sent you that also kind of raises the red flag that it could be fake, because it says ESPN sources Cowboys are trading 3-time All-Pro linebacker Micah Packers to the Green Bay Packers.
I can only imagine the heart rate of one Adam Schefter.
He's shaking
as he is breaking this news. So there was a video that was done by Sports Illustrated years ago. Like this had to be 2017 probably 2017, 2018, whenever AJ Bouye went to the Jaguars. And you're probably like, what kind of sicko knows that off the top of my head?
I remember AJ Bouye.
Everybody remembers AJ Bouye because he took this Jacksonville defense and made them Saxonville. Then they made it to the NFC Championship. So that happened, I think, in 2018. So this had to be like the summer of 2017, or maybe it was released in 2018.
Sure.
But it was a day in the life of Adam Schefter in free agency. And I bring this up because this was around the time where it became socially acceptable for like Adam Schefter to be on his phone during television segments. There was a point in time, believe it or not, where that was a massive no-no. You have to get off of the screen. They cannot see you texting on your phone. That was also a point in time where beards were not allowed on television. Thank God we Thank God we have moved away from that. They also didn't really like tattoos on television, and now tattoos are on television.
Hell
but
yeah.
I bring this up because in this video, it's like 7 minutes. It was pretty cool. It came out when I was in college, like kind of, cutting my teeth in the industry and doing all that sort of stuff. But in this video, Adam Schefter breaks the AJ Bouye signing. It's like a free agency signing. And he's like shaking during that. Now, AJ Bouye is a fine player. AJ Bouye ain't Micah Parsons. And for a guy in Adam Schefter that seemingly never sleeps, now, thankfully for him, I don't believe that he has to go into studio nearly as frequently, because there was a point in time where he lived, if the studio was in Connecticut, he lived in like somewhere in New York or New Jersey where it was a 90-minute commute to and from the studio. That means working 16-hour days. In the video, he had a driving service, which is smart, but he's working 16-hour days.
I don't think he drives anymore.
I don't think he does.
Yeah, you can't.
He can't. He's literally too busy.
Too important and too busy, yeah.
He's too, like, the worst thing about being Adam Schefter is like basic things. Grocery store, can't do. Workout class, can't do. You ain't gonna see Adam Schefter in a Zumba class.
It's true.
Terry was doing yoga when he wasn't here. Adam Schefter ain't doing no yoga. He literally cannot. But this man had to be like shaking uncontrollably, heart rate at 1,000, breaking this. You don't see Shefty make mistakes, but Micah Packers was a new one.
Brand new.
It's a brand new one, but it's nowhere near as bad as Jerry Jones. Not once, not twice, but like 4 separate times, calling Micah Parsons Michael. He said, Michael Parsons.
Michael.
And at first, when I saw this, I was like, well, maybe this is, we'll pull this audio up in a second so you, the listener, can hear it. And maybe you can hear what I thought at first. I thought it was just like the Arkansas Southern draw of Jerry Jones. Old dude, kind of speaks like a grandma or a grandpa, which I guess he is because he's 82 years old. But I say that he has like a very similar cadence to my 92-year-old grandmother. She just speaks slowly, delayed. She doesn't have a Southern draw because she's from Jersey and he's from Arkansas. So they're like two completely different beings. But I thought it was just like the Southern draw of Jerry Jones not being able to properly pronounce Micah. And who knows what Jerry Jones was on, because he is a billionaire and he is definitely on something. But listen to this. This is Jerry Jones calling Micah Parsons, arguably the best defensive player in the league, and a guy that he just traded to the Green Bay Packers. This is Micah Parsons being called Michael by Jerry Jones.
There was no question in our mind that Michael could bring us a lot of resources on a trade.
It got so bad to where Stephen Jones had to stop Jerry and be like, Micah. It is not Michael. It is Micah. And
there was a moment in the presser where Jerry finally learned. I'll play that for you.
The other thing that I would like to say is I firmly made a commitment to Michael this spring, Micah, and paid him, and to pay him.
This guy is not a real human being. Like, sometimes I envy billionaires. Well, a lot of times, because $1 billion would solve a good majority of my problems in my life. But I'm like, you can't live like a normal life. You're like not a normal human. And this is a great example of this. How do you not know the guy's name? How do you constantly mess up the guy's name? And let alone, like, the handshake deal is the craziest thing in the world. Did he offer Dak Prescott a handshake deal for $60 million? Why is Micah Parsons any different than any of the other deals that Jerry has negotiated? You know what's not included in a handshake deal? Guaranteed money. The amount of years in fine print, anything in fine print. You can create a handshake deal and then just load a bunch of stuff into the fine print, and then you're completely screwing over one Michael Parsons. Why on earth would anybody take that offer? And by the way, the offer was apparently not that impressive, all things considered. It was like $40.5 million, which at the time where they made that, I believe that would have been the highest pay, because I think the handshake deal was either right after or right before Jamar Chase, but Jamar Chase is getting like $40.1 million. So the 40.5 would have made Michael Parsons the highest paid defensive player, the highest paid 9 quarterback in the NFL and NFL history, but then the TJ Watt contract kind of trumps that. So it's not going to be the same. And then you have this other team that's willing to offer him $48 million. This deal also was made way before we knew about it. And here is where I need to do a little bit of housekeeping. I'm going to be a very big man. Pause. I would like to apologize to Kay Adams. I said yesterday on the program when Max brought up that Kay Adams had tweeted about the potential of this deal. I said, I don't know what Kay Adams knows. I don't know what authority she has when it comes to news breaking. It's not her bag, right? Great interviewer, hasn't really broken a lot of news. I didn't know that the pull that Kay Adams has was this strong. So for that, I would like to sincerely apologize to the lovely Kay Adams. I was not familiar with your game. You clearly are the queen of this. Please accept my apology. And if you could, maybe get Abdul Carter out of the division as well. You can do that next. Thank you. Or get the next pass rusher to come here. Because that is the only bad thing here, Max. Michael Parsons is done. He is out of here. That is great. I really wanted him to be here. And when I saw what they gave up being the Green Bay Packers, which was a big contract, obviously you were going to pay Michael Parsons. If you're trading for Michael Parsons, you are going to pay Michael Parsons. Duh. They gave up 2 first-round picks and an aging defensive tackle. I don't buy into any of the propaganda about how this makes Dallas better because now they can stop the run. You do not get better by trading away Michael Parsons and getting just one singular guy back in return. I would have given up Daron Payne and 3 first-round picks. Would it have taken a lot of convincing? Yes. Would Adam Peters have had to swindle Jerry Jones so bad that multiple states in this country would have called it elder abuse? Yes. But I wanted Micah Parsons here. And this is where we open up the phone lines. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Should Washington have gone all in on going and getting Micah Parsons? 301-230-0980. You can tweet me as well at the Denton Day. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in on the Team 980.
Yeah.
Is the Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980. You can tweet me at the Denton Day. Evan Washburn going to join us in a little over an hour from CBS Sports. Talk college football with Rob Brown at 11, Ben at 12, and Zach Wolchuk from Dallas, who, if you remember, if you are a P1 listener to this show, we had Zach Wolchuk on about a year and a half ago. And Zach Wolchuk was the first person that ever made a comment on the potential of Micah Parsons not being in Dallas long-term that I heard, that you probably heard. So getting him on now, it is very full circle. Not for him. I don't think he's very pleased, but it is full circle for us. So that's coming in about 2 hours. Right now, we're going to the phones. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Micah Parsons being out of the division is great news. It really would be a shame if, Micah Parsons hasn't practiced in a while. Would really be a shame if that ramp up takes, a couple weeks. And maybe, I think, week 3 is like a great time for Micah Parsons.
Coming off a short week 2, or from week 1,
you don't want to rush him.
You don't want to rush.
You're paying $48 million to him. Like week 3 is a perfect time for Micah Parsons.
You might as well let him get off to a slow start. And
you don't want to bring him back on a Thursday, certainly.
Yeah, you don't want him to hurt himself.
No, that's your investment. So week 3 would be a perfect time for Micah Parsons. Him being out of the division and not having to see Jane Daniels is great. The only thing that would have been better is if he was wearing the burgundy and gold. I would have loved if Adam Peters really swung for the fence, manipulated the hell out of senile-ass Jerry Jones, and would have landed Micah Parsons. Are you upset that seemingly he did not even, I don't know that he didn't try, I think that's unfair to say, but he didn't make the necessary moves to get a Micah Parsons? We will start on the phones at 301-230-0980. Sherlock is in D.C. Sherlock, what's going on?
Okay, how you doing? Okay, I'm answer the question. No, I don't think. No, we don't need Michael Parsons, because the whole thing with that is, if we would have got him, that would have tilted our team in another direction as far as the money we would have to pay out. But I wanted to comment on this. What I was talking to you about on the phone is that Jerry Jones, somebody called him crazy or whatever, but I'm just saying, Michael Parsons going to Green Bay maybe can get in the Super Bowl. I know they can make a playoff, but far as what's my point with Michael Parsons? But he's getting 2-round draft picks, the Cowboys, so he probably thinking of building a team up next year. You know what I'm saying? Because they ain't got nothing coming this year. What they got coming this year, the Cowboys? That's all I got to say.
I got nothing. I appreciate it. So here's 2 things. You mentioned the Packers. The Packers did jump Washington in terms of Super Bowl odds for those that pay attention to these sorts of things. The Packers are now like 9-1 to win the Super Bowl, or they're 13-1 to win the Super Bowl after being like 22-23 to 1 to win the Super Bowl. So the odds effectively got cut in half for Green Bay with the addition of Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons is a legitimate needle mover in these sorts of things because, again, he's a top 3 defensive player. There is one thing, I'll get back to some calls in a second here. There's one thing that I have found to be absolutely hilarious in Cowboy fans attempting to mentally make up for this trade.
Cope.
We're getting Arch Manning. And let me tell you,
this thought did cross my brain too.
If you think that Archie Manning, who stopped Eli Manning from going to the Chargers all the way back in 2004, is going to allow Arch Manning, who has been, without question, the most protected player that we have seen from high school jumping into college in the social media world ever. That dude barely tweets. He ain't on no social media. They are protecting him with every fiber of their being. And you think that they're going to send his ass to senile Jerry Jones? Are you kidding? They are not landing Arch Manning. They might trade a first-round pick for Shedeur Sanders. They ain't landing Arch Manning. I am not worried about that in any way, shape, or form. Back to the phones. 301-230-0980. Anthony is in D.C. Anthony, what's going on?
Not too much. So on a reality tip, there was no way in hell that Jerry Jones was going to trade to the Commanders or the Eagles. So to play along with the scenario, you get Micah Parsons, you blow up your salary cap, you still got to sign Jaden, you still got buku contracts next year. So hypothetically, how far were you willing to go to give up assets?
I would have given up Deron Payne, and I would have given up 3 first-round picks if that's what it took to get Micah Parsons here. I understand what you're trying to say, but you can very easily design that contract to where when it's time to pay Jane Daniels, you're going to be perfectly okay, especially with the continual rising of the cap. And then as painful as this is to say, because right now Frankie Louvu is a great player on this defense, if you sign Micah Parsons, the need to re-sign Frankie Louvu next year is not as glaring. You still like to keep him because having both of those two guys would be awesome, but Micah Parsons would then take precedence over Frankie Louvu, and then you just kind of work it out with like a Debo and a Laramie Tunsil. Unless Debo goes out there and just has like 1,500 total yards, I don't know that he's going to get a crazy contract. He's just going to be more focused on guarantees. And then Laramie Tunsil, you'll just have to bite the bullet there with that one. You'll have to pay him a little bit of money, but I don't really think that it'll set you back a ton. And then you can then maneuver some picks around, get more later first-round picks. That's seemingly where Adam Peters likes to do his best work. And if they're just going to do the mercenary route, which they did last year and this year, you could very easily field a roster. But then if you get Micah Parsons, you have a top 3 defensive end, a top 3 left tackle, and a top 5 quarterback. And then depending on how you feel about Terry, a top 10 wide receiver. I would gladly take that. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Terrell is in Baltimore. Terrell, what's going on?
Hey, listen, this is a great day in DMV. I'm just telling you.
To
not have to deal with Micah for 2 games a year is amazing. But it sounds flashy to like if he could have been in the burgundy gold. I personally don't like ex-Cowboys being in the burgundy and gold. I just don't like it. It's just something about playing for the other team. I'm not with it. But at the other time, like we're always talking about how this team is the oldest team in the league right now. And so like if we're to giving up 2 first-rounders or like you said, 3 first-rounders, I think that's really hindering this team to grow and develop and bring your draft picks on. So although he is a generational game changer, difference maker, I don't know if that's enough because we have too many holes to fill. So, like, no, it might be better off going with the Louvu and these other guys until we can get our guys built up through the draft. So, I don't know if I would do it, but it does sound great. I just wouldn't do it for the entirety of my team.
Terrell, that's a great call. Here is the thing in terms of the holes to fill. The glaring hole is filled, with Micah Parsons. He is a legitimate game wrecker. He is what you call a Tuesday player. What is a Tuesday player? That means coaches are fearful on Tuesday when you're like, uh-oh, I got to face this guy this week. Preparation starts immediately. You might even be preparing the Tuesday prior when you know that a guy like Micah Parsons is coming up. He feels the need for a legitimate game wrecker. And because you have a legitimate game wrecker, that would open up avenues for everybody else to go and be great. But also it opens up avenues for everybody else to not see doubles, which theoretically would then help in stopping of the run, and then allowing other guys like your Johnny Newton, your Javon Kinlaws, Dietrich Wise, your Dorrance Armstrong, whoever, Frankie Louvu, to go get after the quarterback and see a lot of one-on-one matchups instead of potentially getting chipped, doubled, what have you, because so much attention is going to be directed at Micah Parsons. And then also because of how deep they are at defensive back, like the defense would be substantially better if you add a guy like Micah Parsons. The one caveat to the argument is something that a lot of you guys have made, and I think it's a very fair point. You want to get younger at some point. Like, you don't just want to constantly be the oldest team in the NFL, and, the first-round draft picks would certainly help in that regard, but it's just very, very rare that you get an opportunity to get a top 3 defensive player legitimately available, although it did kind of sound like there was never a chance that he was going anywhere else. Green Bay, for whatever the reason is, Green Bay was the only place that he was ever going to actually end up going. Jason is in Laurel. Jason, what's going on?
What's up, buddy? It's funny because when I saw your tweet, I did the same thing you did with the text that you got. I had to check it. I was like, this can't be true. I'm dumbfounded, and somebody's got to ask Adam Peters about this because, I know we want to rebuild through the roster, but you drop him on this roster that we have right now, 2 Super Bowls. All right. And you can get other free agents because people are going to want to play here. What it just dumbfounds me that we didn't try to pull this off or didn't pull off, because I know Micah and our coach have a relationship. They talk all the time. He talks about this on his podcast a couple times, and he has said publicly a couple times that he'd like to come here or he'd like to come with VQ. So I'm dumbfounded that that this happened. Doubly dumbfounded that we didn't make a play for, or maybe we find out today we did. And the third thing is, and I don't want to be a Debbie Downer about this, I don't want to play him on a short week in week 2. That actually kind of scares me a little bit, because week 1 we got Carter, and week 2 we got this guy. That makes me a little nervous.
Yeah, that does make me nervous, which again, Jason, I appreciate the call as always. Be a real shame if they hold him to week 3. You know, you just get to deal with Abdul Carter and the host of Giants guys, because it is more than just Carter, Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau. Like, that Giants defensive front is just frightening. They really, really are. So it would be a real shame if Micah Parsons, that back is a little tight. Maybe you don't want to play him on a short week. You just deal with Rashawn Gary on Thursday night by himself and not Rashawn Gary and Micah Parsons. I mean, that would just, again, it would be a real shame if Green Bay wanted to do something along those lines. I mean, who could fault them, though? That big asset, you want to keep your asset, keep him safe, keep him healthy. It'd be a real shame there. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Do you wish that Adam Peters was aggressive and went out and got Micah Parsons? I said I would have traded a guy like Daron Payne, and I'm using Daron as an example because clearly the Dallas Cowboys wanted an aging defensive tackle. They got Kenny Clark. Congratulations. I would have given Daron Payne and a couple of first-round picks, maybe one more, maybe 2 first and a second, to Dallas to get Micah Parsons. It would have just taken a little bit of workshopping from Adam Peters and, honestly, a little bit of bullying. It would have been elder abuse. You had to make Jerry think that he was winning the deal. But I definitely think Adam Peters could have done it. Lap is in DC. Lap, what's up?
Hey, what's up, Den? Yeah, this is very shocking. I'm surprised that he went to the Packers and got traded at all. I'm glad he out our division. It does suck. We would have to see him, on the weeks 2 in a short week.Maybe he doesn't play, like you said, if the back tightness continues. But I agree with you, Denton. I would have definitely traded Payne and a couple of firsts and maybe a second too to get him, man, because he is dangerous, man. He's a really nice player. So we'll see, man. I'm just hoping we be ready for this season. And we're going to get battle tested, bro, offense and defensive from teams. So hope we up for the challenge. And I don't want Jaden to have to be Superman. I hope the team has improved like they say. And I'm still a little nervous. Mr. Glass, as I call him, Noah Brown. And Debo, too. I just hope he's healthy, too, man. Terry, they pick up where they left off, and he'll be better. So we'll see, man.
Lap, I appreciate it. A couple of you have mentioned that the relationship with Micah Parsons and Dan Quinn, that was certainly a point of leverage that I feel like Washington had in their favor over a team like Green Bay. On top of that, you know who else Michael Parsons really, really loves? Jaden Daniels. Like, to the point where it was kind of weird last year. Every time he was on a podcast praising Jaden Daniels. And because he was on a podcast every week, he was praising Jaden Daniels every single week. He loves Jaden. He loves Dan Quinn. I feel like you could have gotten away with maybe just paying him like $43 million, $45 million instead of the 48 that Green Bay gave him. But who cares now? Who cares now, right? The question is just, would you have gone after him with just the might of 1,000 horses? 301-230-0980. We'll continue to take some of your calls when we get back. We'll talk college football with Rob Brown I almost said high noon, at 11. So in about 25 minutes. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980.
All right, it is Friday, August 29th, and you may have heard already, but in case you did miss it, Micah Parsons has been traded from the Dallas Cowboys to the Green Bay Packers in exchange for 2 first-round picks and defensive tackle Kenny Clark. Jerry Jones held a press conference late last evening and said, quote, the facts are we need to stop the run. We haven't been able to stop the run for several years. Those draft picks could get us top Pro Bowl players, end quote. The Mystics, they dropped one to the New York Liberty. The rookies Kiki, Ariafin, and Sonia Citrin continue to be bright spots offensively, leading the team in scoring last night. Rough shooting night for the team as they go 20% from just beyond the arc. The final score, 89-63. To baseball, Kyle Schwarber becomes the 21st player in MLB history to hit 4 home runs in a ball game, the third time this year after Nick Kurtz became the first rookie to accomplish the feat in July, and Eugenio Suarez did the same feat back in April. He becomes the first Philly to do it since Mike Schmidt in 1976. The Nats, they take on the Tampa Bay Rays tonight. Mitch Parker looking to bounce back from his last 2 starts, giving up 12 runs in just 6 2/3 innings. He takes on Adrian Hauser. First pitch is at 6:45, and Nats on deck with Charlie and Dave at 6:15 on The Fan. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch Denton's office throughout all football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us, and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
It's the Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980. At the Denton Day on Twitter. We'll get to back to the phones in a second. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Should Adam Peters have taken the big swing and tried to convince senile Jerry Jones to trade Michael Parsons here? I have some stats on Michael Parsons as well that is going to make him getting out of this division or just away from this team significantly better. Real quick, though, just want to send a congratulations, Mikey Sanderstill, birth of his second child. Congratulations to the Sanderstill family. My wife sent me a TikTok of his wife, and she had the kid, I think it was yesterday. So congratulations to Mikey Sanderstill. So here are some stats that Ben Standing put out, and Ben's going to join us at 12. Here are some stats Ben Standing put out about Michael Parsons. His career-high splits and against the teams. In 8 games against the New York Giants, he's had 4.5 sacks. In 7 games against the Philadelphia Eagles, he has had 5 sacks.
Ready for the kicker?
3 games against the Carolina Panthers, he's had 5.5 sacks.
Oh, my.
So this man was literally a devil in Charlotte. In 8 games against Washington, 10.5 sacks. Unblockable when playing the Commanders.
Demon.
In the TFL department, tackle for loss. In 8 games against Philadelphia, or in 7 games against Philadelphia, 6 TFLs. 6 TFLs against the Giants in 8 games. 9 against Washington. That's a career high. Career high in sacks against Washington as well at 10.5. In quarterback hits, it gets better. 8 against Philadelphia in 7 games. 13 against New York in 8 games. 15 against Washington in 8 games. This man was on demon mode when taking on the Commanders. You know how nice it's going to be to not have to deal with him twice a year for the rest of his career?
I'm going to be waving goodbye until my wrist falls off.
I'll drive him to the airport. I will fly to Dallas on my Odyssey salary and drive that man to the airport. I'll handle his bags. I'll be his personal caddy. Check him into the lobby, or the lounge, because he balling. Make sure he's good in first class. I'll play flight attendant. I'll get him everything he needs. You want champagne on the plane? Here. You want chocolate-covered strawberries? I got you.
I'll sit on the floor in the back for the entire flight. I don't care.
You want a microwaved meal from United? Sure. Salisbury steak coming your way, Mr. Parsons. I'll take care of it. I'll do anything I need to get him onto that plane and the hell away from the Dallas Cowboys and the hell away from facing Washington twice. Unless Washington sees Green Bay in the playoffs.
Troubling.
Jerry Jones sending Michael Parsons to a contender was really, in a sense, the double bird to both the Eagles and the Commanders. Sorry, Giants fans, not there yet. It was the double bird to the Eagles and the Commanders because theoretically, you can still play him twice. You play Green Bay on Thursday, week number 2. And if things go really well for Green Bay, and if things go really well for Washington, you potentially see them again in late January. And that's just like, ugh. Did Denver not want him? Did the Titans? Tennessee wasn't interested. I don't know. Michael Parsons would have felt great in Las Vegas. Did they not want him? So you still could theoretically play Michael Parsons twice. But at the very least, if you play him twice and one of them is in the playoffs, at least you're in the playoffs, so there's a small caveat to that one of things have to go well to play him twice. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Should Washington have gone harder to go get Michael Parsons? Ryland is with us. Ryland, what's going on?
How you doing, buddy?
I'm
morning,
good.
boys. What a day to be alive, eh? What a day. They could have, but I think they could swindle the pack maybe and get them into the district. I don't think Jerry would ever send them to the Skins. But it's a little side note here, Dent. I think here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking the Cowboys are going to implode. I think this is the year they no longer get to tag America's team. It's coming back to the district. And I think they're going to be the bottom feeders of the NFL. So betting the Cowboys to be the worst team in the league, the bottom feeders, the bottom of the barrel, the dusters of all dust, is the best bet you can make. So get them at plus 3,000.
You can get them at plus 3,000?
I can get them at plus 3,000 for the worst record in the NFL, and I'm going to hammer them. I just had to talk to you boys first.
Honestly, so yeah, if you got them at plus 3,000, take that, because I see them right now. Rylan, appreciate the call as always. I see them right now at 16-1. You can bet on Dallas to have the fewest wins in the NFL. The Saints are like the prohibited favorite, and losing Micah Parsons is not about to make the Dallas Cowboys worse than the New Orleans Saints. Have you seen that quarterback room? It's going to make you vomit. But you can get Dallas to have the fewest regular season wins at BetMGM, 16-1 right now. They were 18-1 prior to the trading of Micah Parsons. So the loss of Micah Parsons adjusts those odds and makes it a little bit more favorable to the sports books, less favorable to the gamblers. It also boosts Green Bay from like 22, 23-1 to win the Super Bowl to now 13-1 to win the Super Bowl. So a massive needle mover for Green Bay, and also moves the line for Dallas a little bit in the market of fewest wins in the NFL. I still like, I'm circling in my noggin to be like, how did this actually happen? You know, Rylan made a comment there. I have long stopped considering Dallas to be America's team. I think there have been much other better options over the last 20 years. You know, the Patriots to an extent, the Kansas City Chiefs, especially now that Taylor Swift is a fan of the Kansas City Chiefs and now engaged to a superstar on the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't really believe that Dallas is America's team, but because of the success they had in the 90s and the trickle-down effect, Dallas still moves the number rating-wise better than anybody. That's why they're consistently, like, the reason Dallas is at that 425 slot on Thanksgiving, because consistently that is the most watched regular season window. And that's largely because Dallas is there. If you flipped it and had Dallas at 1 or 12 or whenever the first game kicks off and flipped the Lions to that middle section, that Dallas game would do better numbers. If you put Dallas on the night game, that Dallas game would do better numbers than any of the first two. So that window is really good right in the middle. It's kind of when if you're like my family, we eat a little bit earlier Thanksgiving. We eat around like 2. So we're kind of done eating. Everyone's watching football game before you go back for seconds, or in some cases thirds. If you're another family that eats later and you're like an 8 o'clock eating family on Thanksgiving, you're just kind of having the game on, preparing the food or waiting for people to come over. Maybe people are already there. You're pre-gaming, drinking, whatever. That middle window is a really good window, but that number would follow Dallas in terms of ratings wherever Dallas is placed on Thanksgiving. Let's go to Graham in Arlington, Texas. He is in the belly of the beast. Graham, what's going on?
Hello. As I'm from Arlington, Texas, and I'm a Commanders fan in the middle of a world of Cowboys fans.
Brave.
And this trade came as a major shock, not only to me, but the rest of our community, especially after the Luka trade back earlier this year. So forgive me for the noise. I'm walking to uni right now, but I think Adam Peters should have gone all in on trying to trade, and I definitely do mean all in, because Micah Parsons has expressed his love for Dan Quinn. He's expressed excitement for Jaden Daniels. And the best thing that the Washington Commanders have right now, in my opinion, is the chemistry. They get along with each other very, very well. And Micah Parsons would only add to this. Micah Parsons was a fan of the Cowboys since he was very little, and he wanted to be on the Cowboys team. And probably the worst thing that Jerry Jones could have done is trade him away, because the Cowboys was his favorite team. But if he expressed interest for coming to the Commanders already had a lot of his previous friends, then coming here could have been great for Micah Parsons. He would have enjoyed it here, and he would have played very well. Now, whenever it comes to what I would give up, I'd be willing to give up quite a bit of draft picks for him, quite simply because even though we are an older team, I feel like the Commanders could do really well in undrafted free agents and free agents, especially if we do really well this next season. people are going to want to come to us like flies to a corpse on the highway.
Right. And they already do. I appreciate the call, Graham. It was a really good one. In the belly of the beast, too. They already do. That's why Von Miller's here. That's why Bobby Wagner's here. Zach Ertz. Guys are revitalizing their careers. And I don't know that Von Miller's going to revitalize his career in 36, but this is like his final ride off into the sunset. But you want to come here. You want to play for Dan Quinn. You want to be associated with the Commanders in 2025 and beyond because of who they have at quarterback, because of the ownership group making really positive changes that make the place here much more admirable than it has been. Before, guys were just, hey, is Dan Snyder going to be a fool and sign me to a contract that's way above the worth? Oh, sure. I'll come play here. I'll sign a contract after I stepped on a dude's head, ironically, on the Dallas Cowboys. Had a great year. I'm going to sign a contract, buy a bunch of jewelry. Never really end up playing that well for Washington because I can't run. I'm Albert Haynesworth. That's why guys were coming here before. Guys now actually want to play here. So that is a very nice caveat to have for Washington. That would have made this a little bit easier. We will continue this conversation. Zach Wolchuk's going to join us in a little under 2 hours here. He's in Dallas. He was the first guy that had made any sort of real mention, at least on this station, about Michael Parsons potentially not being in Dallas for forever, because all of us thought that Michael Parsons was going to be in Dallas for forever. He is a forever kind of player in an organization. You only let him leave if it's like year 12 and you're like, you know what? You're 36. I don't know that you got it in you anymore, but he was definitely not there yet. And Dallas still decided to trade him. On top of that, there was a report yesterday from Ian Rappaport where he said that Michael Parsons took the offer to Dallas, the offer that Green Bay had, took the offer to Dallas, and said, like, I'd still like to play here. Can we get to something comparable? And, Dallas had offered 40.5 early in the season on the Jerry Jones handshake deal. Green Bay was offering 48. I don't know that he expected Green Bay to get to 48, but kind of like to what Graham said, there's some personal feelings. Moving, just generally speaking, kind of sucks. You want a big contract. I bet Dallas could have kept him if it was 45. If it was $45 million, he probably stays in the same place to play with his teammates on the team that he grew up idolizing. He probably stays there for $45 million. And effectively what Ian Rappaport of NFL Network said was Jerry told him, or whoever, Jerry, Steven, whoever it was, told him, play on the fifth-year option or leave, which is a crazy statement to make. And Micah Parsons was like, I'll leave. See ya. And now Dallas has Kenny Clark and 2 first-round picks. And those first-round picks are probably going to be really late in the first round because Green Bay was already a pretty nice team in the NFC, and they filled the biggest hole, the biggest need on that roster by getting a guy that is a legitimate game wrecker. Evan Washburn in 30 minutes. We pivot to college football coming up next. Rob Brown of the Fan Upstate and BetMGM jumps on with us. We'll pick some games for this weekend. Don't go anywhere. We'll get back into some of the Micah Parsons stuff in about 35 minutes. Evan Washburn, CBS Sports, going to be with us. He also had a great interview with Jaden Daniels that I want to ask him about. This was during training camp. Just haven't had time to get him on here. So he's going to join us in about 30 minutes. But we're pivoting now to college football. Week 1 is this weekend, and we got some doozies. Well, week 1 is now, effectively. We had some good games last night, have some more good games tonight, and then the big boys coming up on Saturday and Sunday. And joining me now to break these games down, my guy Rob Brown, BetMGM Network. You can also hear him in South Carolina on the Fan Upstate. Follow him on Twitter at The Rob Brown Show. My friend, how are you? How did you do last night on the card?
Denday, I got my ass kicked. I'm real mad. Are the Nebraska Cornhuskers fraudulent again? Why do I keep falling for Nebraska, Denton Day? I can't do it anymore, man.
Yeah, I lost on them too. I had them covering the 6.5. They did not. They kept me up way later than I needed to be up, Rob. I watched that entire game. I had to watch that entire game because I had to do a show, including that entire game. So they kept me up a little bit longer than I wanted to. Did you bet USF like everybody else did?
I did. And I'll tell you why I did. And I think I said this to you when you were on my show on Wednesday, Denton Day. I said, you're all about to just see how important Ashton Jeanty was last year. Like, we can talk about Madsen and we can talk about whoever else you want to talk about on that team. That team 100% was Boise State was Ashton Jeanty last year, right? And I took the Bulls for one reason and one reason alone, which was the belief that Ashton Jeanty was that team last year, and you all got to see how good and how important. I don't think people realize how special of a year and how special of a player we got to watch, regardless of how he does in the NFL, how special of a player we got to watch in Ashton Jeanty last year, and you all found out last night.
Yeah, he's apparently having a once-in-a-generation running back at a group of 5 school is a pretty big deal. Thankfully, I was on USF as well. It felt like everyone was towards the end of it, but the Boise State thing, I'm not a fan of that quarterback there, man, and they were very lousy yesterday.
Yeah, and listen, I do not have Boise State as my group of 5 team. I couldn't. I saw that they were one of the betting favorites to be the group of 5 champ that was going to go. I couldn't take it. They got there because of Ashton Jeanty last year. I don't know what people looked at with Boise State last year and thought, well, without a once-in-a-generation, maybe, and I'm going to keep it a buck, maybe once-in-a-lifetime caliber running back, I have no idea what people were leaning on and thinking the Boise State Broncos were going back this year. I didn't see it.
No, I didn't see it either. So I want to talk about some of the upcoming games this weekend. We'll save the big ones for a little bit, but you're based in South Carolina. They have a big one taking on Virginia Tech, which is like kind of local here. Not really, but it's like 5 hours away from where I'm sitting right now, but it's local enough to where everyone graduates from Virginia Tech and then they take jobs up here. How do you see this one playing out? Is this the year that Lenore Sellers in South Carolina make a massive jump?
I mean, I would like to think so on behalf of all of the South Carolina fans at my listening audience, and therefore the amount of money that I will make if they do make it happen. I'll start with this game, Denton, and then I'll kind of roll it into what it means on the season. I think South Carolina's got to come out and blow the doors off of Virginia Tech. And I know that's not going to be easy because I think Brent Pry is desperate. I was at ACC Media Days, and it seems like most people think that Brent Pry and Dave Doran are probably the 2 ACC coaches most likely on the hot seat. So I think that they are desperate, but just on paper, they're not as good as South Carolina. And listen, I'm not making the argument South Carolina is an elite team. They do have who I think is going to be an elite quarterback in Lenore Sellers. But as far as the season goes, South Carolina has the most difficult final 7 games in college football. They've got LSU, they've got Ole Miss, they've got Oklahoma, they've got Alabama, they've got Clemson at the end of the year. Maybe the most difficult final 7-game stretch in football. So if you're Shane Beamer and the Gamecocks, I think you've got to come into this game looking at it from the standpoint of not only do we need to go 5-0 out of the gate, but we need to blow the doors off of everybody that we are favored against, because in the final 7 games of the year, we might not be favored in any except the Coastal Carolina game, right? Like they could, I'm not saying will, they could be dogs to Oklahoma. They could be dogs to Ole Miss. They will be dogs to Alabama, LSU, and Clemson. So
I think they've got to come out and they've got to put fireworks up in these first 5 games, including Virginia Tech on Sunday, so that when it does get tough down the road, they've got some room for error. I have made the argument. I think this year is a year where it is possible that a 9-3 SEC team could be an at-large playoff team this year. And if that's going to happen, South Carolina is the best candidate because of how difficult the schedule is. But if you're going to have 3 losses, I think you've got to be prepared to go 4-3 in the backstretch and not lose one in the first 5 and mandate that you go to the 5-2 down the stretch, because that's going to be a big ask. So I'm going to bet South Carolina to win and cover on Sunday. I will say this. If they do not cover in that game, I will not put another penny on the Gamecocks the rest of the year.
Is Lenore Seller going to make it to New York, do you think?
I mean, I hope so, because I've got a ticket on him to do it. I've got one on him to make it. I've got one on him to win it. Look, here's the deal. I think the good news for Lenore Sellers is that he's going to have plenty of chances to get extra possessions and go do something special with the football, because South Carolina sent more NFL draft picks than they've ever sent before this past year, and they were all defensive guys, Nick Eamon-Wari, et cetera. Like, they sent some dudes. They're going to have to reload, and they're not Georgia, right, where we know Georgia is going to be bringing the 2028 Philadelphia Eagles defense onto the field this year. South Carolina is not that, where they just reload 5 stars. They are going to have to develop a bunch of guys that have been on this team 2 or 3 years, Denton, but have not played much in 2 or 3 years, and that's a big ask. So I think that Lenore Sellers is going to be involved in a number of shootouts this year. I'm going to be betting a ton of South Carolina overs this year, but he's going to have the chance, because of that, to put up a ton of numbers. I think he's got the talent. The question is, A, did the finesse, the touch, the precision passing get better? Because I do think that was the one weakness to his game. And B, did Nick Harbor get rid of the dropsies? And does he have guys lined up at wide receiver that can help him? Because he did not last year. So if the wide receiver room got better, and if he is involved in a bunch of over-crushing shootouts, then yes, I think Lenore Sellers has the talent overall to be a Heisman Trophy finalist this year.
What about Arch Manning?
I'm in a weird spot with Arch, because on one hand, man, I got Paul Feinbaum out here doing everything but providing sexual gratification to Arch Manning, convincing me that, like, he's football Jesus. I'm not in, though. I thought Steve Spurrier had the best take on the whole situation, which was, if Arch Manning is this much this guy, how did he not beat out Quinn Ewers down the stretch last year? And if he was not good enough to beat out Quinn Ewers down the stretch last year, was one off season enough to develop him from guy who could not beat out Quinn Ewers to guy who is the clear front runner for Heisman Trophy? Because that is a massive jump in one off season for a guy like Arch Manning, especially when he is going to be quarterbacking an offense that, yes, was exceptional last year, but lost 8 starters, including all but one of their skill position guys. And on top of all that, now this is probably less impactful on the Heisman and more impactful on, can Texas win the SEC this year? Can Texas win the national championship this year? But I think we got to stop pretending like Steve Sarkisian is not just a slightly more talented Mario Cristobal, right? Like Cristobal at Miami, every time Miami's in a big game, keeps shutting the door on his own genitalia. I'm not convinced Sark isn't just a better salesman version of Mario Cristobal, and I point to that Ohio State playoff loss last year, especially that goal-to-go situation where you've been a power run team all year and you're suddenly trying end arounds to the short side of the field against the best linebacking core in college football. I didn't understand it. So I think Arch is a guy I have a ton of questions about, and I think it is fair. Maybe he is that guy. He's got more resources with Eli and Peyton and Archie and what is it, $6.4 million in NIL money. Like, he ain't hurting. He's got the resources to be it. But again, if he could not beat out Quinn Ewers last year, was one off season enough time to turn him into the definite Heisman frontrunner this year?
Rob Brown, my guest here on the Kevin Sheehan Show with Dent Day sitting in. He hosts the Rob Brown Show on the Fan Upstate in South Carolina, and he is a host rotating on the BetMGM network. Rob, how do you feel about Sark if he wins this weekend?
Same as I felt about Ryan Day when we asked the exact same question about him last year, right? Like at some point, either you've got to get the monkey off the back and you've got to get it done, or at some point, we're just going to have to embrace that that is who you are. And it feels like that is this year for Steve Sarkisian. And it may not be his fault that it feels like it's that year for Steve Sarkisian. It may be the fault of, you know, the media or the AP voters or the coaching poll voters or whoever you want to say. But everybody's got Texas as the runaway number one. Everybody's got Texas to win the SEC, to win the national championship, to have the Heisman Trophy winner, yada, yada, yada. Because of all of that, it does kind of feel like Steve Sarkisian either gets it done, or do we not have to kind of maybe place Sarkisian into the James Franklin table of like, I will believe this guy can get it done when he gets it done. Now, I know, like, to me, after having gone to SEC and ACC Media Days this year, it does feel like the narrative around Penn State has changed a little bit. Like, there were a lot less jokes about Penn State and big game James this year. But until James Franklin gets it done, that's the narrative. And I'm going to say, if Sark doesn't get it done this year, whether it is fair or not, I think he will go into that James Franklin category of, I don't believe he can get it done until it gets done. This isn't unique to Texas. He did it when he was coaching out on the left coast as well. If he doesn't get it done this year, I think he goes into that James Franklin category.
Rob Brown here talking college football with us. So do you think that Texas is going to be victorious against Ohio State? I've bet Ohio State already, Rob. I bet Ohio State. I got them laying 1.5. Do you think that this Julian Sayin kid can outperform the new Tim Tebow?
I am with you. I am taking Ohio State. Now, I got them a couple of days ago when it was at 2.5. I think I saw that line today is down to 1.5. Ohio State is dogs at the crib, favorites at the crib. I am going to stick with an Ohio State money line win in this one. I think Ohio State's got questions too, right? Like, I think there are questions about replacing the talent they lost that went to the draft, guys like Emeka Egbuka. I think it's fair to have those questions. Honestly, Denton Day, and I don't know if I am underthinking this, I really am taking Ohio State because of the coaching matchup. I think all the pressure is off of Ryan Day. I think that when it comes to who are these two unproven quarterbacks throwing the ball to, I mean, at some point, Julian Sayin can go with the bleep it Jeremiah Smith down there somewhere offense if they have to. And I think that is absolutely a huge resource. If there's a guy going to New York City for that Heisman finalist who's not a quarterback, it's either him or the kid down at Alabama at the wide receiver spot. So I think there's a little bit less of a question on offense overall for Ohio State. And again, with the pressure off of Ryan Day to prove that he can coach in a big game, why not ride that narrative? So I don't think that losing this game eliminates Texas or Ohio State. I think both of them are still going to be front runners to win the conference, but I do think it will ding a confidence a little bit. And if I'm going to bet on that, I'm going to go with a coach that now after last year I have a little more confidence in big games like this, and that's Ryan Day.
Which game are you more interested this week? LSU, Clemson, Notre Dame, Miami?
That's a really good question. I'm going to say Clemson LSU, and it's not because I cover Clemson, although I think there are some great storylines in this game, or in the Notre Dame Miami game. Mario Cristobal being one of them, Marcus Freeman being one of them. The quarterback question, Notre Dame was somebody unproven in CJ Carr, Carson Beck. Is he worth $4 million in NIL money? Sure. But think about the narratives that are in play in Clemson LSU. You got LSU who has not won an opening day game in 5 years, and Brian Kelly trying to get that monkey off the back. There is the narrative, is Brian Kelly on the hot seat? I have talked to a number of people. I had Peter Burns on the show a couple of weeks ago from the SEC Net. He's like, no, he's got too much money. But if he does not get to the playoffs this year, he will be on the hot seat next year. I'll say this. if they lose to Clemson out of the gate, there's a good chance they lose to Florida 2 weeks later, and LSU starts what is expected to be a playoff season at 1-2. Tell me Brian Kelly's not a little bit on the hot seat at that point. And on the flip side, here's Dabo Swinney. We've talked about the Dabo Swinney philosophy, right? Like, yeah, we'll allow NIL, but I'm not going to make it a huge focus of the program. I'm not going to lean super heavy into the portal. I made the joke that going into last year, there were 3 schools that did not have a transfer portal in player, 2 service academies in Clemson, right? Like, that's kind of what the Dabo philosophy is. This year is a referendum on whether the Dabo Swinney philosophy can work or not. You've got the best roster you've had in Clemson since 2018. You've got the upgraded wide receiver room you've been looking for. You've got the best front 7, in my opinion, in college football on defense. And now you've got a Heisman Trophy frontrunner at quarterback. If Dabo does not get it done this year, then even if they come close, if he doesn't get it done, I think Clemson can start asking the question, is Dabo too much of a dinosaur? But if Dabo does get it done, I think everybody's got to shut the hell up about Dabo Swinney, and he can metaphorically turn a big old double bird to everybody that covers this sport that's been ragging on him. So I think you've got 2 season-long narratives about the head coaches at both schools. You've got 2 Heisman Trophy contenders in Garrett Nussmeier and Kate Klubnik dueling it out. I really think that game is more interesting, even if it is just step 1 in some season-long narratives.
Who's the most overrated team in college football right now?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I did have somebody yesterday tell me they honestly think it is South Carolina, and I'll kind of contradict some of the things I said earlier. I do not think it is South Carolina. I think South Carolina could also be a team that goes 7-5 this year. So I don't think people are wrong who say that that is the answer. I think Boise State was in that group, even though they were only ranked 25. I think the fact that they were the consensus run-it-away group of 5 champ that would get a bid. I think that they were dramatically overrated in that spot. I don't know if this is fair. I think it might be the Auburn Tigers. I am completely frozen out on the Auburn Tigers. I think Hugh Freeze is a hypocrite. I think he's a liar. I think he has sold Auburn a false bill of goods. He's out there playing golf while he's telling everybody he's been dealing with health issues. I've not talked to anybody that covers or is a fan of this team that is in with Hugh Freeze. I think Hugh Freeze is a wonderful recruiter. I have no idea how or why, but I think he's a great recruiter who is not a great coach. And I'll tell you when I bailed on Auburn 2 weeks ago, when Hugh Freeze said that he's got one guy who's going to call the plays on first down, and he's got one guy who's going to call the plays on third down, and he's going to call the plays on second and fourth down, but also sometimes he might step in and overrule the first down guy or the third down guy. When I heard that, I was like, dude, what the hell are you doing? And I know that Auburn is not like a highly ranked team, but there are a lot of people who expected them to be a contender in the Southeastern Conference, to maybe be one of those SEC teams battling for a 10-2 at-large playoff bid. I think Auburn genuinely might be 6-6 and 7-5 this year and be looking for a new head coach next year.
So that means you like Baylor tonight, right?
I do like Baylor tonight. I've got a moneyline Baylor win tonight. I think Auburn can get upset. Now, there is one more interesting storyline. This one is not confirmed, so I do want to be very clear that this is kind of rumor and speculation, but I did get this from somebody in Opelika, Alabama, who covers this team that I do trust. There is a rumor going around right now that despite the fact that Auburn paid like a bunch of money to get Jackson Arnold out of Oklahoma with NIL to get him in the portal to Auburn, that he has been outperformed by their backup quarterback, a cat by the name of Deuce Knight, who is a very athletic dual threat style quarterback. And the rumor going around Auburn right now is that Deuce Knight has clearly outperformed Jackson Arnold, and that Hugh Freeze actually wants to play Deuce Knight over Jackson Arnold. But because Auburn put in so much work, and because Auburn spent so much money in the portal to get him there, that Hugh Freeze is being told, like, no, you're going to play Jackson Arnold. Because think about it. If he does not play Jackson Arnold, then in the future, if you're a big-time star in the transfer portal and Auburn comes to get you, and you look and you go, wait, Jackson Arnold was the guy you went after, and then you didn't play him, you're less likely to view them as a portal destination. And if you're an NIL sponsor, you put $250,000 into the pot to get Jackson Arnold there, and then you don't play that guy. Well, why am I spending $250,000 on a quarterback who's going to be on the bench and not advertising my company? I'm not going to give you NIL money moving forward either, which means that Hugh Freeze is going to either have to, A, play a quarterback he believes is inferior, or he's going to have to let that quarterback fail enough to where even the fans are going to say, no, we have to make a switch now. Either way, this is what I'm saying. When I think it's ugly behind the scenes, I've got a Baylor outright win ticket tonight against the Auburn Tigers.
You're a little bolder than me. I got him at +2. I wanted him +2.5. I waited too long, and now it was +2 this morning, so I had to grab him before it started to move a little more than that. So I got them at +2. Hugh Freeze getting that job because he could beat Saban for Saban to retire like a year after is also hilarious to me, because like that's the entire reason they got him.
It is almost as funny as Brian Kelly leaving Notre Dame because he says that it's easier to win championships at LSU, and then Notre Dame goes to a title and Brian Kelly can't sniff one, even with Jaden Daniels. It is almost that funny.
Who's your champion?
You know what? I've gone back and forth, and I've been accused of this being a homer pick day. I don't think it is. When I'm picking a champion, I am looking at, number one, who has the best roster, and number two, who has the fewest questions about them. And to me, that's Clemson this year. I'm going with Clemson. Yes, I cover them, but I also think it's a good pick. You got, again, best front seven in football, Heisman Trophy caliber quarterback out front, very upgraded wide receiver room. The only question I have about Clemson is, can they run the football with converted wide receiver Adam Randall going to running back? And we'll get that answer. I think we'll get that answer tomorrow night against LSU. But I got a head coach who knows how to get it done. I've got a team full of guys who are fresh off an ACC title game. I got a roster that has dudes everywhere except at running back. I think you've got position by position, one of the best rosters in football, and I think you've got the fewest questions about Clemson. I have more questions about Texas, Georgia, Alabama, Oklahoma, Ohio State. Because of that, I am picking the Clemson Tigers.
What about a Heisman pick, an official pick that you've locked in?
That's a tough one, and I'll tell you, I'm gonna fence sit this. I'm gonna be an absolute coward on your show today.
You can give me two if you got two.
I've got three. I'm sending three. Now, those three are Arch Manning, and everything I just said about Arch having questions, I do, and I think it's fair. But I will say this, Denton Day, that's a hell of a lot of smoke around this kid for there to be no fire, right? Like this kid is getting more hype than any quarterback who has not played a full season in my life. Honestly, I can't name another guy who's got more hype before they were ever even named QB1. So I will take the ticket. It's my smallest bet. I'm going to go full homer again. I'm glad I sound like a homer because it tells me that with some good football here in South Carolina, Denton Day, I'm taking a ticket on Cade Klubnik and Lenore Sellers. I think Lenore, if he gets South Carolina, into the playoffs this year, then I think Lenore Sellers will also be a guy that has got himself in a Heisman Trophy position. But if he doesn't and Clemson gets into the playoff, especially if they get in as an undefeated 1 or 2 seed with a bye, then I think Cade Klubnik will have had a spectacular year. So I am going to go with those two guys, a ticket on each. So give me a ticket on Arch, on Cade, and on Lenore Sellers.
Rob, you are the man, my friend. Enjoyed this weekend. Is going to be a lot of sitting on the couch, but it'll be glorious.
Over under number of beers drank between here and Monday, I'm setting at 22.5, buddy.
And I'm smashing the over for you.
Yes, sir. That's the play.
That is Rob Brown of the Rob Brown Show on the Fan Upstate in South Carolina, and he also hosts on the BetMGM network. Kind enough to break down this week 1 slate. We do have picks coming, but that will be in about an hour from now. We did okay yesterday. We split it 1-1, did okay yesterday. I think we're going to have a winning weekend, so we will give some picks out for today's game, tonight's games, and the games on Saturday. I also have one on Sunday as well. You'll get all of that. I'm convincing, I've been texting back and forth, Max. I'm trying to get Kevin to send me his smell test picks for the
you're hard at work
for the week. He gave me Cincinnati yesterday, and I was like, Kevin, I got terrible.
Oh no,
I was on Nebraska, but he was correct in that one. So we traded. He gave me the Cincinnati pick, and I was like, you should probably hammer USF. And he's like, all right, I'll think about it. And then he does this bit, which I think is funny. like 4 hours later when the game was in like the third quarter, he just went back and liked the text message that I sent him about it. And I was like,
That's a good bit.
I was like, thank you. I appreciate that. All right. I'm Denton Day. I'm sitting in for Kevin Sheehan. Evan Washburn coming up in about 10 minutes. Don't go anywhere. Evan Washburn, CBS, coming up here in about 5 minutes on the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day, sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980. I do have great news for those of us that are locked into college football.
There's more?
That were maybe a little worried. There was rumors.
Oh.
Yeah. There were rumors this week that Fox and YouTube TV were in some sort of contract stalemate.
Oh, I thought we were talking about different rumors.
We can get to other rumors if you got other rumors.
The Cade Klubnik fake story. I don't know if you heard about that. Somebody faked a car accident story.
No, I didn't. Yeah, I didn't pay too much attention to that.
Just came across my timeline.
Yeah, I saw something like that. I saw something about like Clemson ratting out someone for LSU. So
they did do that.
What was that story?
So basically, the player was playing at Houston last year, and they were playing BYU. He got into a fight in the second half of that game, the final game of the season. So Clemson went to the NCAA and was like, "Hey, he should still be serving a first half suspension," and it carried over.
That's very Dabo Sweeney.
Very Dabo.
So my news is way better than both of those two things.
It is.
YouTube TV and Fox were going to have some sort of standoff, and this is not abnormal. It feels like as we get closer to football season every single year.
Wasn't there a CBS one like 2 years ago?
There was a CBS one 2 years ago. There was one, I don't know if it was that CBS one or another one, because it feels like CBS has it every two or 3 years.
Yeah.
But there was one where you did lose like the first quarter of a game.
Yeah.
So I remember that, to where you were trying to watch a game and it said, "Hey, we are at a disagreement. Help." I don't know. I don't know what they can do. It's like, "Hey, go download Paramount or something like that." It wasn't anything like that. It was just like because it was before streaming services. So it was like a help, we're in trouble sort of a deal. Thankfully, YouTube TV and Fox worked it out. So you get to watch Texas and Ohio State. You get to watch Auburn and Baylor tonight. Auburn-Baylor is kind of the marquee as far as I'm concerned. Like yesterday was Boise State and USF.
Georgia Tech, Colorado doesn't interest you?
It does interest me, but it doesn't interest me as much as Auburn and Baylor, just because those programs are a little higher up on the totem pole than a Georgia Tech and a Colorado. But I am kind of stuck on this Georgia Tech-Colorado game because I really, on one hand, really like Georgia Tech, but the line is super short. It's 4.5, and it doesn't feel like it should be 4.5. It feels like Georgia Tech should be a much larger favorite, something in the neighborhood of 6.5, maybe 7. Something, I'm sure Kevin has done this to you, but something that Kevin used to do all the time, and we'd quiz each other, be like, "Hey, I got a line on this game. What do you think it is?" And we play odds makers. If he were to do that to me, I would have said 6.5 for Georgia Tech and Colorado. So the fact that it's 4.5 worries me a little bit. I like the Colorado quarterback. He used to play at Liberty. He got me to go to a New Year's Six game. So I like the quarterback of Colorado. That line is just a little uncomfortable, and I don't know that I want to play it. So I'm stuck on that one. But I'm glad that we get to watch Texas, Ohio State, no issues. Because let me tell you, if it would have been 12:01, you're on Fox, and all of a sudden it goes away. "Hey, we're in a dispute. Call YouTube TV. Get them to side with us," or whatever the message was going to come up with. It would have been a madhouse. And whoever, I guess it would have been YouTube TV, whoever was manning the phones at YouTube TV would have had a bad day at work. Because there's nothing you can do to prepare yourself. Had a situation arisen where you had millions of angry college football fans calling you, most of which, who had already been pre-gaming. And I mean pre-gaming like in your own home or at like a bar. So you know how it's like so crazy, Max? This is like such a 2025 thing. There are a lot of bars that use YouTube TV.
Yeah.
Like they're not on Fios or DirecTV. Now those bars still exist, but there are a lot of bars that use YouTube TV. I remember when we did the Honor Brewery pregame and in-game show, or not in-game, because at that point the in-game show wasn't a thing. Pregame show for the Detroit Lions game and the Philadelphia game in the postseason.
Mm-hmm.
There in the area where we were watching it, which was like kind of in this like sectioned off little area.
Yeah.
You had to kind of like walk away from the bar. Kids weren't allowed back there, so on and so forth. But they had a really nice seating area, bunch of chairs, bunch of tabletops, all these things, right? You could fit like 50, 60 people back there comfortably. They were on YouTube TV. The bar was not. the bar was on Fios. So you could hear people screaming 40 seconds beforehand. That was a very odd dynamic to kind of deal with as a fan. All right, coming up next, we'll get back into the NFL. Evan Washburn, CBS Sports, going to jump on with us, talk a little bit about the Michael Parsons trade, what he learned from interviewing Jaden Daniels as well, and an outlook for the Commanders. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Dente sitting in. Don't go anywhere.
All right, happy Friday, everybody, and even happier Friday to all my NFC East brethren. Besides Brian, who sits across from me, you may have heard already if you're living under a rock, or unless you're living under a rock, but Micah Parsons has been traded from the Dallas Cowboys to the Green Bay Packers in exchange for 2 first-round picks and defensive tackle Kenny Clark. Jerry Jones held a press conference late in the evening and said that those draft picks could get us top Pro Bowl players. The Mystics, they dropped one to the New York Liberty last night. The rookies, Kiki Ariafin and Sonia Citron, continue to be bright spots offensively, leading the team in scoring last night. Rough shooting night for the team as they go 20% just from beyond the arc. Final score, 89-63. Moving to baseball, Kyle Schwarber became the 21st player in MLB history last night to hit 4 home runs in a ball game. The third this year after Nick Kurtz became the first rookie to accomplish the feat in July, and Eugenio Suarez did the same thing back in April. Kyle Schwarber also becomes the first Philly to do it since Mike Schmidt in 1976. The Nats, they take on the Tampa Bay Rays tonight. Mitch Parker looking to atone for his last 2 starts, giving up 12 runs in just 6 2/3 innings. He takes on Adrian Hauser. First pitch at 6:45 on the Fan, and Nats on deck with Charlie and Dave at 6:15. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1, and you can catch Den's office throughout all football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
It's the Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980 at the Denton Day on Twitter. We'll go back out to the phone lines now. Evan Washburn, CBS Sports, good enough to give us some time here on a Friday. Evan, first and foremost, man, appreciate the time. Hope you're doing well. Your reaction yesterday when you got the news that Michael Parsons was on his way out of Dallas and headed to Green Bay.
Well, good to be with you, Denton. I would say stunned, but not shocked. I think it's fair to always keep in the back of your mind that it is possible, despite what seems like a non-tradable asset and a player of Micah Parsons' ability, that if he's requested a trade and they clearly are having an impasse when it comes to contract negotiations, that a trade is possible, and not just because of the Dallas connection, but I think the Luka trade over the course of last spring or winter, whenever that was, kind of got us a little bit more in tune with the idea that anything is possible. So yeah, I would say stunned. And then it being the Packers, even though they were rumored to have a big offer in terms of draft equity, that one kind of was a reminder of, wow, that puts them in a different stratosphere. So it was one of those times where it definitely captured everybody's attention at the same time, which is fun.
What was your thoughts then when we had to all sit through? It felt like a communal event when we all sat through the Jerry Jones press conference following the trade.
It's funny you bring that up because I saw that he was speaking at 6:30, so that would have been 6:30 Central, 7:30 our time, and I was already kind of winding down for the evening, and I did put it on my phone for the first probably 5 minutes, and then I just turned it off because I just think I get why we do that. We're part of that process, press conferences, but in a situation like that, it's not as if you're going to get the real story or the real reality. I mean, I think you can parse through what is being said and try and kind of armchair psychiatrist the whole thing, but I didn't spend the rest of my time consuming the entire press conference.
What does Kenny Clark bring to that defense? I feel like he's a good player, right? So he makes them at least better in one capacity, but I don't know if he's worth Micah Parsons. Well,
he's definitely not worth Micah Parsons, but I mean, they had to get somebody on top of the draft pick. So I think if there's somebody on that defense, then he's a capable piece. I think ideally in their world, he's helps them stop the run, which they couldn't do at all last year. I know that was brought up when the trade went through after all the shock and awe of him going and how much money was spent to bring Parsons in on the Packers side of things. But the story to me is more specifically talking about the trade is the draft picks and what they'll actually end up being. I mean, that's where, to me, I really align with the thoughts of, all right, if you were going to move on from the player, why not shop him to a place that was willing to part with draft picks, sign him, but isn't a team that now will most likely finish in the realm of you picking in the late 20s and possibly in the 30 range for the next at least 1 to 2 years.
Evan Washburn, my guest here on the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day, sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980. So, Evan, the reason that I reached out to you, you did a really great interview with Jaden Daniels, and Jaden is still very young in the league, and really when you listen to him talk, whether it's in other interviews or in pressers, he doesn't really give you a lot, but I felt like you had one of the best interviews with him this entire offseason. What did you learn the most of sitting and talking with a guy that took the league by storm last year?
Appreciate you saying that. I would just say comfort in his own skin. He was clearly comfortable playing the quarterback position last year, and I think that comes from the amount of time and snaps and games that he was able to get under his belt in college, the environments he was in, from the issues or the trouble or the adversity, if you will, at Arizona State, and then thriving at LSU, which is basically like a pro program down there. I just felt like, having met with him a couple times in his rookie season, he was in that mode of, I just want to do and say all the right things, which, not to say he's not doing that now, but it just feels more natural. And he just seems so comfortable. And I watched practice, much like you have, I'm sure. I'm sure you've maybe been to more practices than I have. I don't take too much away from that, especially in such a small sample size. But, man, did he look, again, comfortable. I think the sense in my mind is that he now has complete control of this, and he showed that a lot last year. But where he and Cliff can go in year 2, I imagine, is head and shoulders from where they were a year ago, but probably even where they were late in the season when they really got things rolling. So the word that just keeps coming to mind is comfort and who he is, what he's about. And that allows him in those settings, whether it's an interview or on the field, to just kind of be himself and not be concerned of doing and saying and all the right things that I think a lot of rookie quarterbacks, especially near the top of the draft, have to wrestle with.
So obviously a lot of us are thrilled with the way that the offense looks on paper. What do you think the addition of Deebo Samuel can do to elevate the offense from the end of last year going into 2025?
I think ideally it would be the ultimate kind of Swiss Army knife chess piece. I think you do have to keep in mind the amount of football he's played, not so much age, but just his style of play is wear and tear that he takes is different than other receivers because he is doing a lot of things like lining up out of the backfield, his special teams role. I think that's going to be a big part of his role with the Commanders. I think with the new kickoff rule where you're going to the 35, we're going to see so many more kickoffs returned this year. And I think that's where Deebo can be a big factor, maybe even punt returns. But then for Cliff, who's the ultimate creative offensive coordinator, and Jaden, again, going back to that idea of just being able to have more on his plate, to have a player like Deebo who can literally line up anywhere on the field, probably even under center. I think that's where you want him. But I wouldn't want and or expect that it's going to be an immense amount of touches, especially early, because the goal and the issue with Deebo at times is he gets rolling and then he gets banged up and then you lose him for 3 or 4 weeks. And then even when he comes back, he's not what he was. So that's going to require a lot of sort of preparation, prudence, kind of the caution of how you use such an explosive player.
When you were at camp and just around the facilities, could you get the idea that they really started to like a guy like a Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt?
It was still early, Denton, when I was there. I want to say it was late July. Was it? Yeah, I mean, if it was late or the first couple days of August. So we were still kind of in those kind of early weeks of camp. But I know his name had popped. I don't think I was able, or I had it on my list to specifically ask whether it was Jaden or when I talked to Dan Quinn off camera and just kind of catching up with him. But clearly he's somebody that they identified, even if it was late in the draft, and have been pleasantly surprised. And that is really, for what feels like a marathon of a training camp season and preseason, what I enjoy is these guys that kind of outplay their draft pick status or whether even undrafted. I mean, I'm here in Baltimore and doing their preseason games, and they just had added 3 undrafted free agents to their defense. And it's a defense that many expect to be top 10 and a team that's competing for a Super Bowl most likely. So those kind of stories are the ones that I think make a time where we're all getting a little stir crazy, ready for real games, pretty cool.
So because you're in Baltimore and you're kind of around them as well, right? And you get to kind of get a feel for what Lamar Jackson is. How personality wise are he and Jaden similar?
Authentic, I think, and I don't mean that to say that all quarterbacks aren't authentic. I think, and it goes back to that discussion we had earlier about, I think there's this expectation that every quarterback's supposed to be the CEO or the front facing or say all the right things. And it's almost like they've watched YouTube clips of how Peyton did it or Drew Brees or Tom, and then they kind of put their spin on it. And Lamar from day one has just been his own man, and it's the coolest thing. And he's gotten more comfortable, I would say, with what comes with being one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL, and he's grown into it, but he's still always been himself. And at times he's guarded, but he'll also kind of open up and show you little windows into his personality. And then obviously what he does on the field kind of speaks for itself. And I think that's where kind of Jaden, in his own way, going back to our earlier discussion about just his comfort, I think that's where you could see the similarity from an authenticity standpoint in his personality and how he's going to kind of be the face of an organization and one of possibly, I mean, I think he's got to back it up for a year or two, if not more, but he could be one of the new faces of the league along with Lamar and Josh and Mahomes.
Evan Washburn with me here on the Kevin Sheehan Show with Dent Day sitting in. Evan, I got 3 more questions for you. I saw that you were around the Pittsburgh Steelers training camp as well earlier this month. What has Aaron Rodgers been like in the addition with Pittsburgh?
Well, I think what's cool for Aaron is that it's the first time, especially since he left Green Bay, but probably even in the later years with Green Bay, where it's not really about him. I mean, we're going to make it about him because that's kind of what we do, and we have him week one as a crew, and he'll be the headline of our game. But within that building, especially when they were in Latrobe for training camp, they're one of the few teams that still goes remote for their training camps, or offsite, if you will. It's about the brand, the Steelers. It's about Mike Tomlin. It's about TJ Watt. It's about Cam Hayward, DK Metcalf, Jalen Ramsey. Yeah, everybody wants to know what's going on with Aaron, but within that building, he's not required to be the ultimate leader at every moment, and they're not all looking at him. What Aaron Rodgers needs to be is a elevated version of what he was at the tail end of last year, and he needs to run that offense efficiently and make a few throws and big plays in critical moments. He doesn't have to be MVP Aaron. He doesn't have to be the guy who showed up to save the Jets a few years ago. And I think that has to give you some semblance of just relief that I'm among players with similar, and a coach, similar resumes to myself. So I'm with my people, if you will, as opposed to wearing the weight of all that success is on my arm and my shoulders, which is what I think he felt at least the last couple of years outside of the injury season, and then probably his time in Green Bay when he became the man.
When you look at the overall hierarchy of the NFC, where do you think Washington falls?
I mean, I think Philly's in their own category right now, and that's well earned. I would just put them right probably in the next grouping of Detroit, Minnesota, Washington, and LA. And I think they all have specific question marks, and that's kind of what makes this time of year fun to talk about. But for me, it gets a little bit maddening where it's like, we just got to get to where we can start to answer some of these things. And I would say Washington's question marks aren't as glaring as a Detroit's with the new coordinators, LA with the questions about Matt Stafford. Minnesota, is J.J. McCarthy capable of leading a team that has everything necessary to win a Super Bowl in his first season under center? For Washington, it's an old roster that's going to be relying on older players in and around a star young player in Jaden Daniels to replicate what was a magical season a year ago where they won a ton of not just close games, but somewhat improbable at times games. And that we've seen can be challenging, but I'm a buyer in what Dan and Adam Peters have been able to do.
And finally, do you have you picked a champion yet? Who do you think is winning it?
I've never really done it and I have no issue doing it. I mean, I think we're not supposed to pick games that we call. So I don't know how that works if you're talking about the Super Bowl, which we're not doing this year. I don't know. I would say from the AFC, I wrestle with the same three. It's Buffalo, Kansas City, and Baltimore. I think Cincinnati's can have their say in some things. Pittsburgh could be fun if they catch lightning in a bottle with that group. I always sort of lean towards saying Bills. And it's funny, I was in my kids' drop-off line today, and the gym teacher asked me who my Super Bowl was too, and I just joked with him. I was like, well, I guess I got to pick the Packers now because they got Micah, and they're a pretty good team too. But Philly's tough to pick against right now. The Phillies' biggest opponent this year, in my mind, is going to be just their environment. It's such a group that to me kind of feeds off of the doubt and the Philly fan base and all the tension that always exists. And if they're this good as or at least what they were at the end of last year, the way they won the Super Bowl, there's not going to be that tension. There's not going to be that doubt, and maybe that's their biggest opponent. So for your case, Denton, I'll go Bills, Eagles, and see where we land.
Evan, appreciate the time as always, my friend. Enjoy the lead up to week number 1.
You got it, buddy. Thanks.
That is Evan Washburn. You can see him roaming the sidelines, calling games for CBS Sports. In fact, you'll be able to see him on Paramount Plus. And all football talk on the Team 980 is presented by Paramount Plus. You can't count on much these days, but you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. Watch your local NFL game every Sunday on CBS and Paramount Plus all season long. Visit ParamountPlus.com/NFL to get started today. When we get back, Ben Standig will join us, get his thoughts on the lead up to week number 1. Did Washington actually have a chance at Micah Parsons? He answers that question next. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Dende sitting in. Is the Kevin Sheehan Show. Dende sitting in for Kevin on the Team 980. It did bring me so much joy, Max. Earlier this week, when after 2 years of playing this song, coming into Ben Standig,
he
Kevin finally realized
noticed
that we play the same song every time that Ben Standig comes in, because it's the only song that I could find that had standing as a preliminary part of the song itself. So with that, we welcome on Ben Standig. And I ask you, Ben, had you realized that we had always played I'm Still Standing by Elton John for like 2 years when you were on the show?
Oh, yeah. You asked me once way back when, hey, is there an intro song you would want? And I don't think I said, I said, whatever you think. And then, I realized what you came up with. And, yeah, I mean, makes sense. I'm down with it.
And I'm sure that's exactly the first question you thought I was going to ask you when Micah Parsons got traded yesterday. I'll start, though, with that. Your general reaction to Parsons leaving the NFC East.
Yeah, look, I mean, obviously from a Washington Commanders perspective, this is good news. I mean, irony is that they have to play him in week 2, but then that's it. It's only, one game a year at most, a regular season game at most, and it won't be every year. So that's a good deal. I was looking it up earlier, for his career, Micah Parsons has more sacks, tackles for losses, and QB hits against Washington than any team in the league. And obviously they play the most, plays more games in the division, but that's, more than the Eagles, more than the Giants, and in some of the categories, significantly more. So yeah, adios to Micah Parsons. One less thing to have to worry about on a consistent basis. And, in terms of the deal itself, look, obviously Burgess made a big discussion about Jerry Jones, possibly blowing this negotiation. I certainly agree that if you had any inkling you were going to do this, it would have been a lot better to do it back, before free agency or the draft to maximize the amount of teams that would be involved. I'm not as upset about the actual, moving him as other people are. I think that, we talk so much about culture here and all that stuff. I don't really know from what I've heard that Micah Parsons is the most well-liked guy in that locker room. I think there was a lot more, love for Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Zach Martin when they got their deals. And, I think we saw when DeMarcus Lawrence left to go to Seattle, that he and Micah got into it on social media. And I get the sense that there's more of that vibe kind of going on. Very different, say, than with Terry McLaurin, right? There was no sense of everybody wanted him back, building, locker room, all that. This one, I don't know, but that doesn't change the fact that they probably could have gotten more if they had done this deal, a month ago.
Was there ever a chance that Adam Peters could have put together a deal that would have landed him here?
No.
What if they tried to convince senile Jerry Jones that they were actually the Washington State Commanders, not his rival? Do you think that would have worked? Send him the mug.
Probably the mug, yeah. Yeah, probably not. It's one thing, look, Peters and the Eagles made, a couple of trades already, right? Jahan Dodson, and then the one involving the draft picks a few years ago. That's one thing. To trade away, essentially the best player on your team, that's just not going to happen in the division. So, or at least certainly that's how Jerry was looking at it. So, yeah, I don't think there was any prayer. The fact that Micah had clearly had a affinity for Dan Quinn was always the thought of all right, well, if he says I only want to go to Washington, maybe you could see it get interesting, but obviously that didn't happen, and I don't think there was any real chance that it was going to.
What was your biggest takeaway this week from listening to Terry McLaurin and Adam Peters speak for the first time since signing that extension?
Well, look, I think, Terry said that he was happy with the deal, and ultimately that's all that matters from his perspective, no matter what any of us think or say about the situation. But I think Adam Peters, kind of laid it out look, we wanted to keep him, but he also had another year in his contract. We didn't really have to do anything. And I think that's something that Kevin has pointed out before. And, I wrote, try to look at the contract and, talk to people around the league about, what's really going on here with these numbers. And, one takeaway I had was, I had thought about this during the process. If Terry does nothing, he says, I'm just going to play out my contract knowing that the franchise tag is possibly looming for next year. So he basically would have made $16 million or so this year. The projected franchise tag is 28. Now, obviously, it's a risk that they don't use it or that you get hurt or whatever. But let's just, for argument's sake, say they would. Well, that's essentially his floor. Therefore, was 44 million guaranteed, which is what he ended up getting. So yeah, he locks it in as opposed to waiting. But he basically got what was sitting there if he had done nothing. Again, taking on some risk, and now to give up that risk, he has Washington has his rights for the next through 2028. So you however you want to look at that, security versus freedom, I guess. He obviously they ultimately chose the security, which totally makes sense, but it was not a huge number by, I mean, again, 44 million is amazing. But in terms of the other people at his position or what we've all been discussing for the last umpteen months, that, you know, it's less than. And I think Peters, look, I think they just held firm and we're kind of like, look, here's where we're at. We're really not going to move. You know, anybody who says that McLaurin had the leverage has no idea what they're talking about. So, you know, the team had the leverage between the fact he was under contract and the tag. And, you know, ultimately, I think they did use it. But, you know, again, clearly the player seems to be fine with where it landed. And, you know, that's all that really matters.
Are you expecting him to get a majority, if not just a regular slate of snaps come week one?
Yeah, I mean, I would say majority of whether he gets, you know, you know, he's often in like the 80-90% range, well, you know, maybe not 90%, just depends on the game flow. But yeah, I mean, I would imagine he's probably a little bit less than normal because, you know, they have to look at this as a marathon, not a sprint. Week one's important. Every game's important. Week one, you know, but so is having Terry around for the long haul. And, you know, the big risk here that I think everybody took is, you know, that he has not been practicing football. Yes, I'm sure he's in tremendous cardio shape, but that's different than being in football shape. That's different than just, you know, being, you know, completely in sync with Jaden Daniels and all that stuff. So, you know, I think the first week or so, it wouldn't surprise me if you played a little bit less because, you know, they cannot afford to have him pull a hamstring or something along those lines. And now all of a sudden it's a multi-week problem or something that lingers throughout the year.
Ben Standing, our guest here on the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980. So how are you envisioning Deebo Samuel is going to get used? Gone are the questions of where Terry is going to be. Is he going to be there? Is he not going to be there? We know he is. How are they going to utilize Deebo Samuel?
Yeah, I think this is what, you know, the way we all imagined it when they made the trade. And I think we saw a little bit here. He'll typically be the slot guy in 3 receiver sets. I imagine if they go 2 receivers, he could be, you know, the other guy more so than Noah Brown on the field with Terry, but they're going to give him touches out of the backfield. I think this is another part of the Brian Robinson trade is that when you start looking at, you know, who divvying up the pie of touches, I think Deebo is going to get some because otherwise there's no reason to have traded for him if he wasn't going to get some. We saw the end around in that Bengals game. So yeah, I think he's going to be moved around the rotation. He'll be the chess piece. And, you know, look, I think I on my podcast, the latest episode, I did sort of a superlatives bit, including like who is the most outstanding player of training camp. And I went with Deebo because he was the one guy who play in and play out. He was just making big plays pretty frequently. When Jaden was throwing him the ball, it seemed like it was always caught, whether it was, you know, a high cross or a deep shot down the field. It's hilarious that there was that talk about he looked out of shape or whatever back in minicamp, which was another insane thing that was what people were saying. But yeah, I thought he had a great summer, and I think he is the exciting piece to see how Cliff is ultimately going to, you know, how often he's going to use him in certain situations. And, you know, look, again, we haven't seen him with Terry really even in practice. Frankly, we're not going to see it now because we don't get to see practice anymore other than the first couple minutes. So I think it's really intriguing to see how they will deploy him, and he looks like he's ready to take advantage of whatever they do.
So I was always under the impression that if Jalen Lane got snaps, he would be a slot guy. But based on some things that a bunch of different guys have said, is there a potential that he might play outside? Does he have that capability?
Yeah, I mean, I've been comparing this to the Mikey Sanderstill deal. Like, there's no way Sanderstill at his size was going to play on the outside. But when they looked at what they had and were like, oh, boy, we desperately need some help. And this kid's pretty good. He's pretty tough. Let's see what he can do. And then, obviously, he had a pretty good year, even though, you know, he's still not a long-term option there. I feel like Jalen Lane is the same deal. As we know, as we've talked about all summer, the receiver depth is pretty limited. I mean, they only have 5 now, and the 5th is Luke McCaffrey, who, you know, whatever his future will be, the present does not suggest a guy who's ready to contribute. So based on that, Jalen Lane's had to practice more on the outside in case, you know, whether it was Noah Brown's injury prevents him from week 1 or he gets hurt during the season or the Terry thing blew up, whatever it may be. So, yeah, I think we're just testing Jalen Lane out there to see could he be the Mikey Sanderson version of this group. Now, because Debo Samuel exists, I also think finding ways to get Lane on the field is important, and that could mean, moving him outside. And Debo would do some of that as well. But, if they want to get him on the field between Terry and Debo as opposed to Noah Brown, how do you do that? And I think testing him on the perimeter is certainly one way to go.
Ben Standing, our guest here on the Kevin Sheehan Show, with Dent Day sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980. Was there any surprise cut for you this week when they trimmed the roster down?
If I say no, I don't want to act like I have all the answers, but no, because it just wasn't like, I feel like I've been repeating myself now every time I go on a show, but when I did the 53 projection, I ended up getting 51 of 53. The two that I got wrong were on the defensive line at position that I said there's basically 14 guys for 10 spots. They only kept 9. You can kind of pick whoever you want. And it wouldn't I don't think there was much difference between Eddie Goldman, Carl Davis, Sheldon Day, Jalen Holmes. They ended up keeping 2 of those guys on the practice squad. The Josh Johnson one, again, I'm not going to say it was a surprise. To me, it came down to where are they at with Mariota. I think the mistake I probably made, I realize now, is they probably don't know exactly because he's only just coming back to practice. So if there was any doubt that he might not be ready for week 1, you had to keep Johnson because, you can't just bring the guy off the street who hasn't been in your system. And obviously Sam Hartman, has not shown enough to think that he could be that guy. So, from that perspective, yes, but I don't. So the answer is ultimately no surprises for me really in anything they did.
Were there any legs, you think, to the potential of them moving off of Noah I?
So I, checked around with some other teams, and the best sense I got was that, he's available for the right price, but the right price isn't just giving him away, which is ultimately no different than you would view from a lot of players on any team at any given moment. But I think it suggests that, they feel pretty good with Trey Amos right now. Marshawn Lattimore, the investment is what it is, and he's been healthy this summer, so hopefully that keeps going. We talked about Sanders still, Jonathan Jones, who has been out the last, week or so of practice. Hopefully we need to get an update from Quinn, and starting next week, he has to tell us things. The team has to tell us things, so that'll be good. But that's your 4. And, Igbenogany, it's sort of like he showed enough last year that having him as a 5th corner while a luxury, maybe it's something you can afford to move on from if you can get the right price from other teams that might need something. Now, what would they do if they moved on from him? It's hard to say. They like Dan Quinn seems to like Antonio Hamilton, who's a 32-year-old vet they brought in during camp, and they can have some other depth pieces. They signed another cornerback yesterday to the practice squad. They have Carlin Vigor, so it's always a risk. But I think that's how they're looking at it, and that's how I would look at it. We have a guy who's probably too good to be the quote unquote 5th corner. So what could we get for him? And you'll probably not feel like we're losing too much if we moved him.
So with the team telling you guys things next week, they also give a depth chart next week, right? An official depth chart.
Yeah, that is a fair point. I think the only real question I have at this point is the offensive line. Unfortunately, my question yesterday for Dan Quinn was going to be about that. What's the projected look? Unfortunately, work things got in my way, and I had to deal with some other things while he was talking, so I wasn't physically there. But yeah, I mean, the question is, what's the right side of the line look like? Is it going with the veteran look with Allegretti and Wiley? Is it thinking, hey, Josh Connerly has done enough and he's at right tackle? Is it thinking, hey, let's put Wiley at guard because he has experience there, but also this allows us to bring Allegretti off the bench should something happen to a Tyler Biotish or a guard. We don't have to move 2 positions in case of an injury. Now we only have to move 1. I think to me those are the main questions. So, and of course, obviously, Connerly being the first-round pick, do they feel his development is enough? They could, of course, go with the rotation like they did last year with Cornelius Lucas and Brandon Coleman on the left side. It's a very unconventional approach. So I don't know if that's something that they would do consistently. I mean, I've asked about it, but they just kind of gave a, we'll do whatever we have to do to have the best line. So I think that's the big question. Other than that, I don't know. I mean, I think things are going to have to play out. Like, is Jeremy Reeves or Percy Butler the technical third safety? Is Jordan McGee ready? Some of these things we're just not going to know until they play, because that's more game planning stuff. But from a depth chart perspective, yeah, what's the offensive line look like?
Do you think the depth chart is going to have Mikey outside or in the slot?
I would say in the slot. I mean, Trey Amos, like I said, has looked good enough. I mean, like, I think if they go with a 4-3 look against a team that's showing, like, say, 2 and 3 tight ends, a run package, what cornerback goes off the field? I'm going to assume it'll be Sandersville, because Trey Amos has done enough to show that he's worthy of starting, and obviously hasn't played a regular season game yet, but he's looked good all summer. So yeah, I'm assuming Sandersville is a slot, and again, that leads into the Noah I at least conversation, because they do have somebody there, and Jones can play that as well. So yeah, I think Sandersville is the starting slot. I'd be stunned if he wasn't.
What do we know of the schedule for the team the next couple of days? Off for Monday, off today and Monday, and then back Tuesday, hitting the ground running for New York?
Well, the practice schedule just lines up the way it would in a regular week. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, they're all off, through now through the holiday. But yes, I imagine they'll be back in the building Tuesday, start getting going, and then Wednesday hit the field per usual. So that will be the approach, and they start to get things normal. I'll be honest, I'm thrilled about this, because the schedule has moved around so much every practice, that it's like it's messing with my personal life. Nobody cares, I get that, but like it's hard to know when anything's happened. At least now during the regular season, it'll be more consistent, except for the fact that they have this wacky schedule with so many Sunday night, Monday night, national TV games, that there really won't ever be much of a normal schedule this year.
Yeah, the curse of being good. Speaking of Tuesday, Kendrick Bourne is going to be in town on Tuesday, right?
Yeah, he's expected to visit or meet with Washington and San Francisco. So I don't know exactly how that works with two teams on the opposite coast. Now, he entered the league as an undrafted free agent with San Francisco when Adam Peters, it was his first year with the 49ers, and he was with San Fran through 2020. Bourne, he's a guy who's had some success in this league. Injuries, unfortunately, have kind of messed with him, but he's a guy that's been a contributor. And again, they have they don't have anybody right now who if Luke McCaffrey has to play, not saying it won't work, but there's nothing to suggest that we've seen this offseason that it would. So whether it's Bourne or somebody else, I do feel they need to add another piece. I asked Adam Peters this week, knowing everything that's going on with the receiver room, how confident are you with what you have? Of course, he said he was, and he highlighted also the three guys they added to the practice squad, including Chris Moore and Ja'Cory Brooks. But realistically, I watched them play this summer. You can't feel comfortable with them if they had to play either. So getting a guy in like Bourne, now unfortunately injuries, as I said, have hurt him, and he's been out several weeks now with the Patriots. But from what I was reading, it sounds like he was getting close to coming back anyway. So he would have to, similar to McLaurin and Noah Brown, potentially have to ramp up the football conditioning aspect. But yeah, he could be a contributor. Would be, if they think he can help, I think that would be a potentially pretty good, decent move.
Ben, appreciate the time as always. Enjoy the extended weekend.
Always appreciate it, guys. Thanks.
That is Ben Standig. Coming up in about 15 minutes, Zach Wolchuk of Dallas, 105.3, our sister station in Dallas, is going to jump on with us. I don't know. That might be therapeutic for him, Max, or we're going to laugh at him a lot. It's going to be one of the two.
I mean, it's probably going to be a little bit of both, but there will surely be some venting in there.
He's going to, I think we'll learn a lot more information about how the Cowboys got to a position to where trading Micah Parsons was not just a decision that was made, but how they got there to the point where they were okay with that decision. That in 15 minutes. When we get back, how about a little bit of Denton's Daily News? It is the Kevin Sheehan Show, and Denton sitting in for Kevin on the Team 980. Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin at the Denton Day on Twitter. Zach Wolchuk, 105.3 The Fan in Dallas in 10 minutes. Just kind of got to get a feel. What do the people of Dallas feel like about this trade? We had a lot of fun. Tap dancing on the grave.
Just a little bit.
A couple people came in and made fun of video producer Brian. He took it like a champ, though.
He got a free bagel out of it. He's fine.
He got a free bagel out of it. That's fine. Was it a good bagel? What's your bagel order?
His bagel order is it's changed throughout the weeks, but jalapeno cheddar bagel with turkey bacon, lettuce. We got grilled onions today and mayonnaise.
What's yours?
And lettuce. Cream cheese, everything bagel, extra chive cream cheese. That's my go-to.
Interesting. You learn a lot about people's bagel orders. I had one of the worst bagels of my life from Bethesda Bagels.
Oh no.
It wasn't their fault. It was because I just got too insane with the toppings.
Yeah.
Sausage, egg, and cheese on a Cinecrunch bagel. There was some honey butter. There were some hot peppers. There was some strawberry cream. It was too much, bro.
That's a lot.
It was too much. It just was not good. All right, enough about bagels. Let's get to some Denton's Daily News. So this is a big weekend in college football for a number of different reasons. Obviously, we have a lot of games on that are going to be really fun. Ohio State and Texas is kind of the moneymaker, the main event that starts first because it's a noon kick. You got LSU, Clemson, a lot of great games. It's also the end of an era on College Game Day. Lee Corso's final game day is on Saturday, and ESPN has done a really good job, I think, of building up to the retirement of the legend that is Lee Corso. But I came across something today, Max, that really it tugged at the old heartstrings a little bit. And it really showcased the kind of person that Lee Corso is. Now, I should say, I do not know him. I work in the college football space. I am so far down on the totem pole when it comes to some of these national people. I do not know Lee Corso. However, I do know people that do know him, and they have spoken very, very highly of him for a very long time. But I came across this video. It was him at the airport getting ready to get on a plane to fly. This game is in Columbus, to fly to Columbus to be ready for Texas and Ohio State.
Why is he flying commercial?
Lee Corso is flying commercial. And they gave him this like thunderous round of applause. Not the flight attendant, whoever works like the
gate agent.
Yeah, the gate agent. I don't know what they're officially called. But the gate agent got on the speaker and gave Lee Corso some attention, some love. Everyone was clapping. It really was like this beautiful thing. But I had the very same question that you did. I was like, why is Lee Corso flying commercial? I would have thought that maybe he could.
Kirk Herbstreit's dog flies private.
And that was what I was going to bring up. I think this is what speaks to the personality of Lee Corso. He's like a normal dude.
Yeah.
Does he fly Southwest every single time, every single weekend for College Game Day? Probably not, just based on some of the places they go in the country and where he resides. It might be tough to get to a Southwest flight. I can't imagine there's a lot of layovers in the life of Lee Corso. I would imagine he takes a lot of direct to flights. If I was in his position, would take a lot of direct flights. In my position now, as not Lee Corso, prefer direct flights. I hate layovers. I am spoiled. I hate layovers. And because we have 3 airports within like a 50-mile radius, you can pretty much find direct anywhere. So I do my best to do that. But I found this to be really fascinating. And maybe there's some deal that he has with Southwest that I'm not aware of. I'm sure he has some deal with an airport to where he gets a little bit of a get back on the prices. Maybe he doesn't pay it all. But I just found it really fascinating that he is still operating as if he's just like a normal dude. Whereas we do this segment, I don't know if it's on Game Day or if it's on Amazon, of where in the world is Kirk Herbstreit flying. And like Kirk Herbstreit has a lot of money and he has a lot of jobs, and I get why he needs to fly private. I don't know that he needs to bring his dog everywhere, but he brings his dog everywhere. I got a dog. If I could bring my dog everywhere, I don't know if I'd bring him everywhere, but I bring him a lot of places. Yeah, not everywhere. I mean, not everywhere, but I bring him a lot of places. They're so drastically different. Mr. Private, I'm going to fly to this city, then back home for 12 hours, then back to another city, then I'm going to fly from this city to a game, all on a private plane, whereas little old Lee Corso is just sitting there like 2 rows back. It's not even like he was front. He was like 2 rows back.
When does my group board?
He's like, am I priority today? Now, he did have somebody with him, so, someone was taking care of him. I just found that to be a really cool moment and kind of epitomizes what Lee Corso is. I'm really excited to see how the mothership handles his goodbye tomorrow. It's going to be emotional, certainly.
Very.
There's going to be a lot of tears shed on that stage, but this is kind of what you live for, man. Like, smack this into the veins. College football is filled with emotion, the emotional highs and the emotional lows. So I'm really excited to see how they end up handling that tomorrow. I mentioned this with Ben. Kendrick Bourne is going to be in town on Tuesday, potentially. I say potentially because he's going to San Francisco first. He has been kind of like the Noah Brown of this offseason. If you remember when Noah Brown was cut last year, everyone and their mother was like, Adam Peters has to go get Noah Brown. And it was one of the very rare scenarios where the fan base was totally on it with this group, because it feels like when we are thinking one thing, it's not even like normally the phrase is zig when somebody else is zagging. Well, when we're thinking one thing and the zag is a completely other thing, it feels like Adam Peters is sometimes doing a third thing. Like he has reinvented the zig and the zag, and there's something new. There's like a zip in there, and he's zipping while everyone's expecting to zig or zag. He's zipping. But it feels like this does line up with, you get another playmaker in here. Is he a great player? No, that's why he's available. But he's another playmaker, and at the very least, you trust him a little bit more than a guy like a Luke McCaffrey right now, or than a guy like a Jalen Lane. Not to say that Jalen Lane and or Luke McCaffrey cannot be better than Kendrick Bourne, but I lost a lot of money on expecting Luke McCaffrey to be really good last year. Now, they weren't gambling on him the way that I was gambling on him, the team was, but they were gambling on him in different instances because they used a draft pick on him. They're paying him real legitimate money. If they don't believe that he is going to be a playmaker at this level, you got to go out there and find somebody that could be. And you just got to hope that San Francisco doesn't sweep this man off his feet the minute that he walks in to the building. He did spend 40 years in San Francisco, 40 years with the 49ers. The last 40 years of his career were all spent with the New England Patriots. Him playing 8 years was kind of a shock to me because, the name Kendrick Bourne has been around for a little bit. I thought it was like 5 or 6 years. So to see 8 years played for him, he's very much, I think, would be used in like a OZ role, a Jamison Crowder kind of role. When you need a 4 wide receiver set and somebody needs oxygen, you go and you get Kendrick Bourne. Maybe you could use him in special teams as well if you find a place for him there. But he can kind of do some similar stuff a little bit to what Debo can do. If you want to use some jet sweep and get him in motion behind the backfield to kind of throw off the opposition on defense, I'd really hope that if they want him, that they're going to be able to end up and get him. And it is worth mentioning, in 2017 and 2020, that was very much when Adam Peters was a part of that organization. So there has to be some kind of relationship. Debo Samuel was on Grant and Danny yesterday, and I listened to that conversation. We have no idea what or who Adam Peters is. Debo Samuel loves him. And when at a time where Debo felt like, at least from our perspective, not in that market, but talking to people in that market where it felt like Debo was kind of really upset with the San Francisco 49ers, I'm sure were people inside that organization that he was upset with, but his relationship with Adam Peters seems to be very, very top tier. And remember when we heard these things about when Adam Peters and Jane Daniels didn't really like each other, like before in the lead up to the draft, because of all like the Top Golf and all these weird things. And then we find out that is like the completely wrong thing. Again, zigging, zagging, this dude's out here zipping, and he's zipping past everybody to get what he wants. I hope if they want Kendrick Bourne, that Kendrick Bourne wants to play here, and he plays wide receiver for this team in 2025. Zach Wolchuk, 105.3 The Fan in Dallas, joins us next. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin.
All right. Unless you're living under a rock, you may have heard that Micah Parsons has been traded from the Dallas Cowboys to the Green Bay Packers in exchange for 2 first-round picks and defensive tackle Kenny Clark. Jerry Jones held a press conference later in the evening and said, facts are, we need to stop the run. We haven't been able to stop the run for several years. Those draft picks could get us top Pro Bowl players, end quote. The Mystics, they dropped one to the New York Liberty last night. The rookies, Kiki Ariafin and Sonia Citron, continue to be bright spots offensively, leading the team in scoring. Rough shooting night for the Mystics as they go just 20% from beyond the arc. The final score, 89-63. To baseball, Kyle Schwarber became the 21st player in MLB history to hit 4 home runs in a ball game last night. The third this year, after Nick Kurtz became the first rookie to accomplish the feat in July, and Eugenio Suarez did the same thing back in April. The Nats, they take on the Tampa Bay Rays this evening. Mitch Parker looking to bounce back from his last 2 starts, 12 runs in just 6 2/3 innings. He takes on Adrian Hauser tonight. First pitch at 6:45. Nats on deck with Charlie and Dave at 6:15 on the Fan. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1, and you can catch Denton's office throughout all football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us, and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
Is the Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980. The biggest news of the day, Micah Parsons out of the division. You only see him twice if you match up with the Green Bay Packers in the playoffs this year. Joining us from Dallas, our guy Zach Wolchuk, 105.3 in Dallas. He's with us now. Zach, what have the last 18 hours been like in your city?
We're doing the We Them Boys to bring this in. Come on. Well, what are we doing, Denton? This is just not, this isn't nice. This is not nice at all. The last 18 hours have been, it's not a shock. I can't say I'm surprised by it. I really didn't think that they would trade Micah Parsons. I thought that this would get done. But, it's just another example of the failure that is the Jones family and football operations. So, we're living in a modern day Dan Snyder. You guys got to get rid of that idiot, and now you've got yourselves, a front office that is somewhat, seems like they know what they're doing. And the arrow is pointing up. And the difference here is I don't know that we're going to get any sex scandals or God knows what else that can come out to force Jerry Jones to sell. That's kind of what we need. We need some Gruden emails or something, or else we're just going to be living in this hellhole for the foreseeable future.
I think Gruden did just win that case, so you might get some emails between John Gruden and Jerry Jones. That might be something that you have. I don't know if that's going to happen anytime in the near future, but eventually it could. So one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on is because I distinctly remember about a year and a half ago, we had you on the show, and you alluded to the fact that maybe Micah Parsons wasn't going to be in Dallas for forever. So how did we get to this point from where that was a thing, like, who knows what could happen? Jerry's kind of weird, to now him actually being a member of the Green Bay Packers?
Yeah, so I think the best way to put it is everyone saw him laying on the trainer table, which went down the last preseason game. That type of nonchalant, I'm detached from the team, I don't care, moody Micah Parsons is kind of what you see every day behind the scenes. The leadership conversation, Micah wants to puff out his chest and be like, yeah, leadership, he talks about it on his podcast. Look, the last time that somebody had to yell out, follow me, I'm the leader, you're not the leader, dude. That's not leadership, right? People that are natural born leaders, you just kind of you fall into that role. So Mike is not that. So when you're talking about paying a guy the most money that any non-quarterback's ever seen, I think you do have to do your due diligence. And is this worth paying the player? So I knew that there were people behind the scenes, and I also knew now the DeMarcus Lawrence stuff has come out. I had heard that previously. DeMarcus Lawrence couldn't stand him. I'll be honest, Osa Digizua is not a big Micah Parsons fan. There's a lot of players. Now, there's some that love him. Sam Williams loves him. Trayvon Diggs loves him. There's certain players that, and it's probably what it's like in every workplace environment. You're going to have some people that love you. You're going to have some people that don't. When you're going out and you're setting sack totals for your first 4 years that nobody other than Reggie White's seen, you just look the other way, right? So it's not to say that it's what the Cowboys did by moving Micah Parsons is the right or smart thing. History will tell. But I had heard the rumblings inside that building that Mike is not the easiest individual, and there were some concerns that would he live up to that type of contract if he were to get it.
How much did the podcast rub people the wrong way?
I think the fans were out the second he had Jordan Love on his show. 2 weeks after he just urinated all over the Star in Dallas at AT&T Stadium and kicked their ass and sent them packing. I think that's what did it for a lot of Cowboy fans. They were like, screw this guy. If he wants to go be buddies with a team that just embarrassed us, one of the worst home playoff losses in the history of not just the Dallas Cowboys, but just football in general, all right, are you with us? Or do you want to just go fraternize with the enemy? So I think there were a lot of fans specifically, and I think players as well. Malik Hooker was talked on a podcast 2 off seasons ago about it too. Players didn't love it. Players didn't love the podcast element. Now, Amon-Ra St. Brown and his brother have one. Lions are winning games. No one cares. Marlon Humphrey's got one in Baltimore. They're winning games. No one cares. So when you're winning, it's not a big deal. But when you're the Dallas Cowboys, you go 7-10 last year and you're getting embarrassed in the postseason, it becomes a big deal.
Did people find it weird how much, because I found it weird, how much he praised Jaden Daniels last year?
Yeah, in the top 5 rankings, and then he doesn't put Dak in there. I do think, I didn't think he was wrong. That's not a top 5 quarterback. So, he was being honest. And that's something that I've always kind of respected about Micah. Micah's going to tell you like it is, right? Micah's not going to sugarcoat it. I kind of found that refreshing. And from a radio aspect of it, Denton, you can relate. That's good content for us to be able to have on our show. So, I was fine with it. But yeah, I do think his seemingly flirtation with other teams, and he's wearing like a Tyrese Maxey Sixers jersey. And like there was always the concern, like, does he actually want to be an Eagle? He grew up a Cowboy fan. I never had that sense that like he actually wanted to go play in filthy. But the Cowboy fans, I think we're always looking sideways at Micah. Like, what's really going on here? So, like, for those that are comparing the Luka and Micah trade, it's totally different. Like, there was a funeral outside of the American Airlines Center for Luka Doncic. I think there's very much a split going on of Cowboy fans are like upset or not or happy that Mike is gone.
I was going to ask about those comparisons. Like, what's next? Are you guys going to, hold Nathan Eovaldi tight? I don't know who the great hockey players are in town, but are you like holding them tight? Like, what's next?
Well, thank God, we got Mikko Rantanen with the Dallas Stars. So he's right now the saving grace, I guess, in Dallas sports. They actually traded for a big name player instead of trading one away. But yeah, it's not great. It's not great right now in DFW sports. And look, I mean, the Cowboys are the king, and it's just, I think I don't know that in Washington nobody's going to feel sorry for Cowboy fans. I totally respect that, but it does feel like very reminiscent to, I think, how Washington fans felt in the Dan Snyder era, where it's like, is there any hope here? Like, we have just no chance. And I think that's where a lot of Cowboy fans are with Jerry Jones.
So Zach, I'll get you out of here on this. I know it's only been, about 18 hours, so maybe we'll get more news of this as more time goes on. Do you know if they fielded any other offers, or was this a Green Bay or bust?
Baltimore and Arizona, I believe, are teams that were interested. They cut it into a criteria to where it had to be teams that could pay Micah what he wanted. So they needed the cap space, one. And then the Cowboys did want to get back a defensive tackle because they totally missed on Mozzie Smith. This dude can't play. And they refused to cut him because that would be, admitting that they failed on a draft pick, and they're too egotistical to do that. So they wanted to get a defensive tackle, and Green Bay has Kenny Clark. So that was one of the teams that checked off the box. I think Baltimore with Travis Jones was another one. Arizona, not so much. It would have been like Calais Campbell, and he's pretty damn old. So I don't think they were really interested there. But, yeah, it's the timing of this that they totally butchered. If they were going to trade Micah Parsons, they should have done it prior to the draft. But they thought they were going to get a deal done with him. And then Jerry got in his fields. And now here we are today, a week before the season. We're talking about Micah being a Green Bay Packer. And good luck to everybody else in the NFC if Jordan Love can stay healthy.
I didn't even know that Calais Campbell was still playing. That guy's older than dirt, it feels like, at this point. They didn't want Daron Payne? I would have given Daron Payne,
I'd have loved Daron Payne. I'd have been interested. We could have talked. But the only places that Jerry wasn't sending Micah were the Giants, Commanders, and Eagles. So that he said he didn't care about Green Bay. He didn't care about anybody else. But he didn't want to play them twice a year and send them within the division. So, but who knows? I mean, maybe Washington could have blown him away with an offer. But if you would have offered 3 first-rounders and Daron Payne, I'd have taken that.
Zach, I gladly would have offered that one. I like Daron Payne, but he ain't no Micah Parsons. Appreciate it, my friend. I know it's been hard in your city, but I appreciate you giving us some time.
Of course, man. Thank you.
That is Zach Wolchuk, 105.3 The Fan in Dallas. Losing Micah and Luka in not even in 6 months.
It's been a tough 2025 for anybody who's a Dallas sports fan.
Brian, are you a Mavericks fan too, or are you just a Cowboy fan?
He's on our side on that one. He's on the Wiz.
Damn, that's the team. You
Hey man,
we're growing together, man. You know what? We're growing together. I think next year's draft is it. Next year's draft is the one where the superstar comes for the Washington Wizards. All right, before we get out of here, got to give you some plays. One final look at the college football weekend coming up here. We got a lot of good games throughout the course of the weekend. There's 2 that I'm eyeing. We talked about this a little bit earlier, Max, but I'm definitely on Baylor tonight. So Baylor and Auburn, they kick off at 8. This is kind of the marquee. It's on Fox. I'm on Baylor tonight. That line has moved a little bit. It's right now at 2. It was at 2.5 yesterday. So I feel not the greatest about waiting and playing it at the 2, but I'm on Baylor. I don't think Auburn is in a position to where they are going to be a great team this year. In fact, I think they are a hot mess and a half. Hugh Freeze is being pulled in 18 different directions. He wants to play golf. It feels like more than he wants to coach. They got like 3 quarterbacks that he said he might play against Baylor. Like, this isn't Chattanooga. If you're going to play 3 quarterbacks, you play them against an FCS team that you're paying $1 million to beat up on. You don't play 3 quarterbacks against a Baylor team that has something to prove in the Big 12. So I like Baylor covering the 2 tonight. That one's going to be in Waco. And then the one that I'm kind of perplexed with right now is Georgia Tech and Colorado. This line is 4.5. I like Georgia Tech on the season, and I feel like they should blow in Colorado completely out of the water. But the fact that this line is as short as it is a little bit alarming. So I'm actually going to decide, Max, I'm not playing that one. I'm not playing the spread. I did go the total. I went over 51 and a hook, which is a tough number on week number 1, not knowing whose offense is going to be good. But I decided I'm not going to play that spread. It's a little too much for me. I don't have a great side, so I went over just soccer mom style. I hope everybody has fun and scores a lot of points. Now let's get to the big dogs. I'm on Ohio State tomorrow. I think everyone is on Arch Manning.
Everyone
is on Texas. You're like, well, you lose Jim Knowles for Ohio State. You lose Chip Kelly for Ohio State. You lose a quarterback for Ohio State. You lose a bunch of offensive linemen. And they did. They lost a lot of pieces in a lot of different areas. But this is Ohio State that we're talking about here. They just retool. It doesn't matter if it's coaches, quarterbacks, receivers, offensive linemen. I don't care. They simply just retool. I'm on Ohio State. Now, this one has come down to be a pick 'em. Right now, Texas is now just a very, very slight favorite on the money line at -115 compared to Ohio State's -105. But literally, before you played the slot machine noise, it was -110. It was a straight pickup. So, like, this is changing as the seconds and minutes go by, which means there's a lot of money coming in, a lot of big-time money coming in on this particular game. But I'm rocking with the Buckeyes. I got Ohio State. At 3 p.m., I got Bama, 3:30 p.m., I should say. I got Bama laying 14 against Florida State. I think Alabama's going to be a really good team this year. I got them going into the college football playoff, potentially being a championship contender. I have them winning the SEC. And this Florida State quarterback, Thomas Castellanos, has not shut up about wanting to beat Alabama. That is not the way to handle it when you're taking on Alabama. I know it's not Saban as the head coach of that team anymore, but if you're going to run your mouth like, buddy, you got kicked off of Boston College. They said, we don't want you up here at Boston College. And you think you're just going to walk into Florida State and beat Alabama week number 1? I think this game is going to be chippy. I think it's going to be petty. And a petty game means a blowout by the better team. I think Alabama lays that 14 against Florida State. I got Clemson laying 4 against LSU. This is just because Clemson is my champion. I think Clemson is the best team, or going to be the best team in college football. I have them winning the championship. So I'm going to take Clemson laying the 4 against LSU in the nightcap or the main event slot at 7:30 on Saturday. And then this is the play that I don't feel the best about, Max, but I'm just going to subscribe to the model that Kevin Sheehan has taught me. You go the opposite of the public. I got Miami over Notre Dame. I don't like Miami. I don't like their coach. I do not like their quarterback. But with Notre Dame having a new quarterback in CJ Carr, I'd really like Marcus Freeman. I think he does a really good job.
Good coach.
But you got a new quarterback in CJ Carr. And anytime that I can pull up an app like BetMGM, which shows you where the money is, and I see 77% of the money in one direction in a top 10 matchup, you have to go the other direction. The offensive line for Miami and the game plan, I think, is going to be significantly better than what Carson Beck had to deal with last year at Georgia. They could not run the football to save their lives. Miami will be much better about that. So I got Miami covering the 2.5 against Notre Dame. That's going to be the Sunday night game at 7:30. I'm actually going to be at a wedding while that's going on, but I'll find ways to put eyes on that one. But I got Miami. So I got Miami covering 2.5. I got Clemson laying 4. I got Bama laying 14. I got Ohio State. You can right now, it's just better to take them on the money. So I would take Ohio State on the money. And then I'm on Baylor tonight with an over in Georgia Tech and Colorado. Before we get out of here, Max, do you got anything that you want to get in here that you're going to play?
South Carolina
laying the 7.5.
Yep. I think they're just going to dominate. I'm in on Lenora Sellers. I made some Heisman picks during this show just to kick off college football season.
Gotta
I
get
can't,
'em in.
yeah, I can't do it in Virginia, so I got to do it here. But Lenore Sellers is on that list of picks, along with Cade Klubnik, DJ Lagway, and I laid a little scratch on Jeremiah Love just in case. But yeah, I'm high on Lenore Sellers. South Carolina did a lot last year. I think they're going to be a little pissed coming off of last year because I feel like Beamer and all of them feel like they got snubbed from the playoff, even though But yeah, I'm in on South Carolina against Virginia Tech. I think they're just going to crush.
They need to. The worst thing that they can do if you're South Carolina is be what Oregon was, which was kind of get crushed. Or not get crushed, but not look nearly as good and competent offensively as we thought. That's it for us. Everybody enjoy your long weekend. Stay safe out there. Remember, if you make money off of our bets, hit me up on Twitter at TheDenton Day. If you don't, keep it to yourself. I don't want to hear about it. See ya. Roosters next.